really does feel if Virtus Pro don't deal with these actions well, RAD as an organization could be doing a lot more damage to them. I'll leave it for you guys to look at the draft as we get into Hell's Heaven, but I am expecting very little triple strategist, which might sort of bite RAD in the backside potentially. We'll see how it goes.
We'll have to see, especially with triple strategists being banned out so often, with Mantis creeping up earlier and earlier in the ban phase as time has gone on, and Ultron not seeing as much play outside of the Mantis-Ultron combo draft, Moxie. We just not seen it as much these days.
Oh, they're already starting it.
Yep.
If RAD go for the instant ban on Elsa, because the Na'Vi winning ban line at the start of the match was Elsa into Mantis into Cap into Daredevil. Yeah. Although it should be noted that Virtus Pro did win the first round of domination versus Na'Vi yesterday. We're going to get a Gambit save coming on through here from Virtus Pro. And again, something to talk about is the fact that Na'Vi let the Loki through. So do RAD go, oh, they're doing it, they're continuing it, we're moving away from the Loki and we're going for the Mantis ban instead. This is the true test for VP now. How far have you adjusted yesterday since that loss?
RAD going to protect themselves, the Loki, not the Gambit, so this gives them options for other copies in the future. But Virtus Pro, they're sticking with the earlier bans that we did see. They will take out that Gambit away from RAD. They don't want that double Raging Royal flush available, especially with Loki already hovering around here. There's also a little bit of protection against the dive, of course, that regeneration domain, to at least try and do something about Phi being a menace on that Daredevil if they decide to bring that out. Mantis will finally get taken away by Virtus Pro, meaning Invisible Woman has snuck through so far.
Yeah, this is the swerve, so we're not following line for line the Na'Vi ban line, but like with the Invisible Woman, oh well, yeah, that's why we're getting the Invisible Woman ban. Not only is she a very strong strategist because of just like the healing potential when all of your players are stacked up, but also the utility of things like Force Physics to counterplay the Wolverine. And we were talking about, you know, Crazy Kitty, Smash Nas. Both of these guys have a mean Logan to their name as Ducky's Groot. One of the rare instances that we get the Groot aura ban coming on through, so that Ducky is going to be forced onto potentially running on the Emma Frost instead.
I really like this Groot ban. When we look at what RAD and especially Shikigami have been playing with this Wolverine, Groot's been picked up so much with it because it's very little deadlier than just having a Wolverine pick up one of your teammates, take them to your enemy, and then a wall being put up between them and the strategist. It's this classic Groot style, usually into triple strategist, but in a 2-2-2 lineup with almost a guaranteed pickup each time. So not wanting to deal with that will be taken away on both sides. No Groot available, but the Thing will be protected in case Wolverine wants to enter the fray. And also for a little bit of counter Wolverine setup, as of course the Thing, while vulnerable to percentage damage, does still have a fair amount of crowd control that while Tenacity is not in the game in the patch we're playing on, is still going to be able to try and lock down Logan and slow down that assault, and of course can't get picked up.
Oh, Virtus Pro, though, they were able to get Gambit. They're also able to get the Star-Lord. And that means that we can see Raging Royal Flush with Galactic Legend. RAD not going to be rolling out on the White Fox, even though Phi also got Daredevil for the ban draft at the moment too. So Virtus Pro are going to be playing with all of the information. Finzi also keeps the Captain America, something that Na'Vi were hell-bent on removing in every line of that draft. So we do have full dive composition coming on through from VP. Cap in first, create the space, Star-Lord and Daredevil to give both the information and the follow-up. So there's going to be a lot of pressure coming through onto Rad's backline. Lugia rolling out on the Thing, Ducky 2 on the Emma. This is very much understanding that VP will be coming for your backline and you have to guard it, to the point that we're even getting the Winter Soldier forward out from retirement and brought back into the composition while you still have your grounding effect on the Trooper's Fist.
Just when he thought he was out, he's been pulled right back in. But Virtus Pro going to be looking for those flanking opportunities. Let's see how good this backline protection is. Smashner's playing a little bit further up, just in case he is able to catch anyone out of position. There's also, this is pre the nerf to the cooldown of the Bionic Hook. Wolverine flying overhead, looking for an opportunity to try and grab someone out of position. Trooper's Fist for the follow-up, and Phi becomes the first casualty in this fight. And that's exactly what RAD need to be doing. Guarding, marking anyone who tries to step up and punish their backline, capitalize, and take their man advantage. They're going to take the first percentage on the board and force Virtus Pro back into the corridor.
Poor patience as well from Crazy Kitty. Like, the fact that the Wolverine is barely past 30% ult charge, but it's literally because you're waiting to see Virtus.pro try to make a move on your backline. You peel it, you get the elimination, and then you push. Fight swapping, like you said, onto the Strange so that they can portal on through, but Rad's already got that pickup of the point itself, and Mash is about to get the God of Mischief copy off onto the CD to enable Rad to move forward and take the space away from Virtus.pro. Saipei's also got copy. This should be onto the Gambit, so we get Raging Roar Flush combined with the Galactic Legend. Smashnez is going to be massively targeted, but the Trooper's Fist actually allows him to displace his position back into the Eternal Bond to get the heal tick, and it's enough to live.
Dagger Storm's going to keep them topped up even through the anti-heal and that attempt at the Galactic Legend. Blaster Mirage, Crazy Kitty marking him though, chase him down. Thoroughly directly picks up Sparker, refusing to let him escape as they chase them once again back to the corridor. Rad repel, the portal re-engage, and they are holding this beautifully.
Yeah, that was Virtus.pro also using both casts of Raging Roar Flush. Both the actual Gambit ult and the Loki, so you don't have that to be able to kickstart your engagement in this next fight. Ducky with the Sonic Seduction should be reacted to with the Meteor M coming on through from Finzi, but you're keeping your eye on Fi. Eye of Agamotto could be a huge opener for VP, but the Doctor Strange has to wait the Ember's cooldowns out. There's the walk up. VP will be able to survive, just pushing back into Saipei's regeneration domain, absorbing all of that incoming damage, funneling it back into ultimate charge so that we're one step closer to that one-sided Gambit ult copy. Sparker's got the Ends on too, so we could see the Meteor M combo. There goes the Phoenix ult onto... Oh, that's unfortunate. The map.
Gets caught out, and Finzi is able to capitalize though. Will find one. Crazy Kitty on the counter though. It's turning into a 2-for-2. The capitalization from Crazy Kitty with the last stand, pressuring onto the front line, trying to force them to back up. Even with triple Vanguards on the board, Virtus.pro just can't claim space. They can barely touch the point due to the power that Crazy Kitty is outputting of catching people out of position. Ducky's on the flank, making it so that if Finzi steps up, he's at risk of being grabbed or just melted by that slowly charging up Emma Frost. You can see the attempt of Crazy Kitty just hovering above, seeing if there's anyone out of position, and Fi is about to have to pull off an Eye of Agamotto of their life here to turn this round. A beautiful pickup over the barrier to make some space. Eternal Bond is still giving it a little bit of healing thanks to Vertigo buying some time for Rad, but they're gonna have to give this over. But it's all on the overtime boxing.
Lugia Goat's actually on the Strange.
They're coming back.
Do they commit the Strange TP, or do they try to walk up? The problem for them, it looks like they're actually going to go for it. If they can jump onto Dridro and just take down the Gambit before he gets the opportunity to cast the ultimate. No, Raging Roar Flush comes on through. Smashnez does have Kraken Impact. Regeneration Domain as well on the other side of the portal, unfortunately, means that Crazy Kitty has fallen. And I don't think, Rad are not going to commit to this. But what they've done, Tetchia, is they baited Gambit ultimate while holding theirs. You can walk forward with the Emma ult, or you can just go for a Mash copy to lead your way in when Virtus.pro have to rely on the Meteor M shutting Mash's ultimate down. If he gets the Gambit ult copy off, this could be devastating for Virtus.pro to have to deal with, but no, it's Eternal Bond, and it all comes down to Finzi. Can he find the angle to take the Eternal Bond down? Doesn't manage to land the connection, doesn't have enough charge. Ducky comes on for a Psionic Seduction. Saipei's been able, though, to build up that copy onto the Raging Roar Flush, and Virtus.pro can hold their space and push back.
Here comes Ensong Inferno directly into the hallway to try and deal with them as they're grouped up. Ducky gets deleted. Lugia is looking not healthy. Neither is Crazy Kitty. Lugia gets healed up to full. Crazy Kitty not so lucky. And Virtus.pro, they are taking a beautiful hold here. There was so much discipline from Rad on that engage. Not a single charge onto Meteor M. No extra damage, and as such, Mash was able to survive it, and they were able to keep the fight going, but they just couldn't keep it going. That second Raging Roar Flush showed to be a bit too much damage. Fi is looking for a portal, see if they can maybe do a wraparound, maybe catch someone out of position, and maybe get an early pickup, or even just to block them off here to buy time on 93% to try and secure it in overtime. Splits the team in two. They are completely zoned. Eternal Bond is going to be allowed to touch the point. At least the Vertigo will guarantee them some overtime. And there's the pickup from Crazy Kitty, who makes it through, but Sparker is uncontested in the backline, doing huge damage. The healing output is a lot, but Vertigo cannot sustain. Mash is so close to building up a copy, but he has to copy someone on the side of Virtus.pro, and he will do so. It's Aya Magamoto for the turnaround with the Loki copy, but it's a huge amount of damage from Nevix. A valiant attempt from RAD, but Virtus Pro take the 99 to 100 flip there.
Yeah, it's that one fight, right? Because RAD's whole plan with that composition was, we know they're going to dive our backline with the Daredevil, we'll peel, and then we'll win the fight when we have player advantage. The moment that Virtus Pro get that one fight win, suddenly they don't have to go hit RAD's backline. Suddenly, RAD lose the opportunity of having the Wolverine play more passive, look for grabs to counter the aggression towards your backline, as opposed to setting up onto the enemy team's vanguards. And also, we got to see things like the Phoenix swap coming on through as well from Sparker, so that you're playing for poke as opposed to really like pushing into RAD's position. Very good adaptation coming on through from the side of VP, and now we're really going to have to see like what's RAD's next move, right? Now that you're not going to be able to just play to respond to Virtus Pro, you're going to have to go into a poke fight with them. Potentially having Crazy Kitty remain on the Wolverine to give the team up to Smashnez means that having that extra survivability on the Logan could outlast Virtus Pro's players, but you still have to worry about double casts of Gambit ult.
You very much do. The double cast of Gambit ult could be a huge cleanse on Lugia or Crazy Kitty or even Ducky and Smashnez. There could be so much value here, but that's sustained into a triple Vanguard composition. It could be huge. High ground taken by RAD. Virtus Pro going to be playing on the objective. Immediately, Crazy Kitty with the jump pad to the edge, and it's perfect. Finzi is delivered to the lava, and that's going to be an early pickup. Can't do the same to the thing, though. Benjamin Grimm going to be tanking it on through, as immediately Saipe is going to try and commit this. Even though they're a member down, they want to try and flip this, taking out Lugia Gold nice and early with the extra damage from that Raging Royal Fluff God of Mischief copy. It's enough to control the point, but Crazy Kitty is just farming people in the environmental, gets another, but numbers are pretty heavily favor of Virtus Pro, but RAD are still claiming the point. They're on 19% here. Smashnez takes out Dridro, and somehow, despite going down numbers earlier, Lugia portals them back in, and they're sustaining.
Yeah, they've got the TP coming on through from Lugia Goat. They've still got players as well, because they get to come through that TP. Sparker has to be addressed here on the high ground at some point, especially when the Seraphim shield from the Doctor's range breaks. But at the moment for RAD, you don't want to overplay your angle. You're waiting for Mash to be able to get this Loki ult up. Virtus Pro, understanding the hesitation, decide to take first turn and matters into their own hands instead. Out comes the clobbering time from the Thing's hands, but Vertigo dodges it with the Eternal Bond, and RAD, not able actually to complete holding, are just going to give this up, lose the fight quickly, hold on to the rest of their ultimates, and make sure that Virtus Pro can't farm both poke percentage as well as ultimate acceleration gain.
They even get in the pit just to make sure, like you said, to avoid charge, to get reset as quick as possible. They don't have portal, so they need to make sure that everyone is grouped together when they re-engage on foot. Sticking with the same composition for now, no adjustments here. But RAD, they're built up to a last stand. They have themselves a God of Mischief, so they can try and steal, once again, their own Eternal Bond. Or they could try and steal Dridro if they can get close enough to him. Or Crazy Kitty could literally steal Dridro if he's able to find a good angle with that Wolverine. But now, Copy's going to come in. He actually got it! Mash with the Raging Royal Flush commits to the engage for the side of RAD. Side introduction to try and prevent any counterplay from Virtus Pro, and it works out beautifully. Ults prevented, Hero sent to spawn, and RAD are taking back control. 50-50 for these teams.
Yeah, but Saipe will have an easier time getting the line of sight God of Mischief copy onto his own Gambit, as Crazy Kitty is actually just going to be utilizing the third-person POV to scout around the corner, read out where Virtus Pro are coming from, if they're coming from main, or if they're going to try and sweep out this high ground. We get the Gambit ult copy coming on through from the side of Saipe. Smashnez actually holds them at the pass with the Ensong Inferno, and that allows Crazy Kitty in melee range to catch the mag. Massive Ensong Inferno detonates from Sparker, though. No chance for RAD to be able to break the summon in time, since the rest of the team was still playing on the low ground, on the point itself, and VP with player advantage just have to finish off these last players on Rad's end before Vertigo gets that Eternal Bond or has a Vanguard to actually have the confidence to commit to the ultimate. There we go. Point flips on the side of VP, but Techa, Rad are about to be coming on through with uncontested Eternal Bond sustainability, so Virtus Pro, they have to hold close and try to force the dashes out early.
You can see Dridro and Nevix hovering together. They've got clobbering time and the anti-heal from the Spade deck for Dridro, so they could try and use that for a quick blow-up if they're able to catch them out of position. But RAD not going to fall for that. They're able to pull back. They're able to pull in as a group, making sure that we do not see any isolation onto Vertigo, who is set up. You can see them in cloak form there, getting ready for the ultimate so they can fade out. But Lugia's already taken down before the ultimate comes out, so they lose the healing. Ducky drop low as well. Fi retreating with the Cloak of Levitation to make sure they're not caught out of position from Crazy Kitty, who's trying to play onto the high ground with the last stand to take out the backline. Dridro is finished off immediately. Fitzy with the Meteor M to try and take out one of the backline, but it's all about Sparker, who's taken advantage of the chaos and is just landing flames from the backline here, doing huge amounts of damage. Fincy with the bubble and the beautiful shot onto Crazy Kitty to keep that fight extended for a little bit longer. And RAD, they may have to see if that portal's off cooldown at this point, because Raging Royal Flush comes on out from Mash. Portal comes in from Fi to keep this fight going even longer and return to the fight. Side with their own Raging Royal Flush as Ducky's trying to prevent the follow-up, but gets deleted by Dridro. And Virtus.pro are controlling this fight beautifully. RAD just don't have the numbers on the reinforcements. Dark Force Teleport comes out purely for style points as Virtus.pro control map number 1 and take the first point.
Huge play as well from Fi there at the tail end of that one. Comes back on the Doctor Strange portal, but also uses the portal not on point, but to block the line of sight. He uses it inside RAD's small bunker space that they were trying to hide their backline safely away from the fray from, which means that you cut off the line of sight from the strategists. They're not going to be able to help out those vanguards hold the line. Something to talk about too is the fact that like Nevix on the Thing was really, really good with clobbering times of just interfering with when RAD wanted to use Eternal Bond. You don't manage to catch the Cloak and Dagger when they're inside their Eternal Bond animation because you've got CC immunity, but that same luxury is not afforded to the rest of the team. So multiple times when RAD tried to make their first move with the CD ultimate, they were actually stopped and already down one person before the dashes could even end.
Nevix has so much control over those fights, but a big shout out to Five for making the adjustment when it was needed early on as well, starting off on the Daredevil and realizing, yeah, you're up against percentage damage, but that just might mean you need a bit more beef so you can juggle who's getting targeted. And of course, those portals, making sure you had them available, and they were used magnificently. Reinforcements, perfect. Literally trying to zone them off the point on point 1, which was enough for them to hold. Perfect. And like you mentioned on that last point, the using it as a shield to try and give your team a little bit of extra cover, prevent a re-engage, just beautifully.
RAD at least leading a line first when it comes to domination, but losing out on Virtus.pro that haven't lost this game mode since the end of last year because of Na'Vi and Crisis, and we don't know where Crisis is. Stop asking us. Hopefully we'll see him in the future. Here, though, it is going to be RAD choosing Central Park as a map, which, like you mentioned, Tetcher, was very close the last time that they played up against Virtus.pro. The problem was just how those overtime defenses went, because they also showed up poorly against Shikigami in the playoffs a couple of days ago. So this feels like RAD need to tighten up how they play defensively, because their offense is pretty good.
Yeah, we're starting to see a theme with a lot of these teams where it's like, oh, we triple capped and we got triple capped. Attack, chill. We love our dives, we love our brawls, we love our characters like Groot to separate people, we love our isolations. But when it comes to trying to hold the position, we've started to see teams struggle a little bit. RAD have had a day to try and work that out, and they've had over 2 weeks almost since they last played Virtus.pro in that situation to try and adjust from that as well. So they've got a little bit of time to see if they have locked that down a little bit more. Anything they would have tested going up against VP the first time got retested against Shikigami. Let's see what they finally come out with.
I wonder if the sort of draft ideas are going to change a little bit so far when you've got RAD having a bit more focus on getting the Mantis to play like triple strategist here, Moxie. I think the question I had for you has a lot to do with Hell's Heaven, where we saw the first Protect, not only an EMEA of Thing, but across Ignite right at the end. And I think it's an interesting head-to-head because Nevix has been known to play the Thing pretty well, but also Lugia was dedicating a lot to it consistently across their series against Shikigami when they were knocked down to the losers bracket. I mean, what can you sort of tell about like the focus there? Because we do sometimes see it on Central Park too.
I mean, Thing is really, really strong as a Vanguard because like you have damage reduction, you have high mobility, especially if you ban out Groot, so he can't just wall up the line of sight for you to be able to not jump to your teammates or to your enemies. And you also get to play around like corner cover. So if you're trying to play something like the Thing, you shouldn't be standing out in open space. You'll be taking way too much damage. You have to try and like obscure part of your hitbox around the corner and then use the third person POV to understand when to lead your punches with your primary, connecting onto multiple players as they try to round those areas.
I think when it comes to looking at the draft as well, one aspect of it was obviously the one-sided gambit that Virtus.pro were able to get. And there was a one-sided Invisible Woman that didn't see any action from RAD. I guess it was just a case of making sure that Virtus.pro weren't going to play it. They were more dedicated to getting the low-key cloak and dagger so they could just keep going in for these dives. I guess I'm not going to ask like what adjustments you want to see, Tetcher, but I think for like players and like certain heroes that are played on the side of RAD, who needs to show up? Because I think Smash missing the Elsa a little bit. I don't think he's going to get his hands on it today, though.
Probably not. I think there's a good chance it will be remained banned out, judging by how Virtus.pro have been going. But there's a chance it could be let through, as they've shown a little bit of flexibility when it comes to that. But overall, if they could get their hands on the Groot again, it's a fantastic Groot map in terms of being able to isolate people, especially on that first point. You can just get a huge amount of value by utilizing those tunnels where the defense tries to retreat into on attack. And on, of course, defense, you can zone people off as they try to enter courtyard and get some value that way. So if they're able to get Ducky onto that, that could be delightful. I'm pretty happy for them to continue with the Wolverine. No complaints there. That's been delightful and has been a fantastic tool for them. It's just making sure that they can keep it enabled as the time goes on.
And I think, Moxie, before we see these guys eventually jump into the lobby, I think it seems to be like the Vanguards are going to be like a big focus of how things have been good so far. So we mentioned the thing already. Rogue has sort of fallen down a little bit in popularity despite Gambit being more available. Like Lugia is playing a little less Rogue. It's been banned out more. Nevix is now starting to bring up a lot more of the Venom and Angela. But Deadpool, like Vanguard version as well, like we haven't seen that so far today, wasn't touched in the draft. It feels like there's so many options for Vanguards to be playing with, to the point that now 3 Vanguards were played in that last map too. Seems that there's just like a lot more bodies to get on objectives. That seems to be the win call.
Yeah, I think like one of the big changes I really hope that we see RAD make, though, in regards to those Vanguards, is just being able to time the strange TP recontests. Like a lot of the reason why Tetra was talking about, we've seen these teams like really, really good at attack, and then they go to the other side, they have to defend, and it just looks entirely opposite of what they were able to pull off before. And a lot of it is coming down to the fact of like people are just taking really weird mistimed fights where they're going into an all-out contest, they're mistiming the strange TP regroup recontest, which then bleeds into the setup that they have available for first fight on second. And if you're not able to like anchor your composition as a defense around that corner, it becomes very problematic for you to actually establish any form of hold to win one fight, which is all you need on Central Park. Like when you go onto second, all you need as a defense is one fight that you win, and then you get to close hold the attackers spawn, and they get forced into having to burn ultimates, burn time. They have zero map control too, because you have to just like go and take all of those angles, both main, flank, wraparound rotations. You have none of it available the moment you step out from your spawn, and it really does like bleed a lot of time out of the bank. But multiple times now in the past, RAD have mistimed those TP plays and haven't had the opportunity to use second to burn the time down if teams make it to third. So I think for me, I'm really hoping that's one of the areas that RAD have gone back at and looked at very specifically. The fact that they're taking us to Central Park gives me hope in that department.
Has to be an adjustment, I suppose, too. Yeah, I think, because on that subject, it's weird, Tetcher, that like RAD are making those kind of like lack of coordination mistakes, considering that the core of this team have been together for quite some time. Certainly the Vanguards as well. I think one of the other things I wanted to highlight is that we have the head-to-head of two of the longest serving like Vanguard duos of Finzi and Nevix versus Ducky and Lugia. There's probably some that sort of beat them out for time, because we haven't seen much like Ducky recent, like up until the start of this stage, because we missed him in stage 2 of last year. But it's the fact that he's been playing with Lugia since like the Invitational in part. So it feels like that's an interesting look in of like how the front lines are going to deal with the pressure. Certainly when it comes to there being more flexible options of tanks too.
But you bring up the fact that these two duos have been together, but the coordination doesn't just come down to them. It comes down to the whole team. And we can talk about how a lot of these players have played together on different teams, but when you look at how long Virtus.pro have been together, it's like they're a whole new team in comparison. Whereas RAD have only come together into this form in MRC for this tournament, for Ignite qualification, whereas Virtus.pro have been essentially the exact same with minor changes since Team Cats in Season 0 MRC, which they won, as with every other tournament outside of Ignite Stage 1. They've been together that entire time. In terms of who's been around longer, it's night and day.
I'm going to say, like, Rad attacking first. Attacking side isn't to be worried about. It's maybe their defense. Take it away, guys.
Looking at Elsa right away. No surprise there.
Yeah. I mean, we said we don't think that the Elsa will get through the ban draft, and it does seem that it's now in that space. And it's really, like, strange as well, because when we talked to players the first day of playoffs, they were like, yeah, you know what, the meta's moved, ban draft, it's Gambit instant ban now, Elsa save, and we're back again on the Elsa instant ban into, well, not a Gambit save. Yet again, rather really, like, wanting to be able to prioritize this Loki pick coming on through, which means that Virtus.pro will ban out the Gambit. And honestly, like, this is a move we're starting to see from more teams. You're okay with letting the Loki through and the Gambit from the other team, because it just means that, yeah, you get Gambit banned out, but as long as you have a God of Mischief copy and direct line of sight onto the Gambit, you still get the Raging Roll flush through, and that's the most broken element of Gambit's kit.
It's so much extra damage, it's mobility. If you get walled off, you can jump over it. It's still one of the best ultimates in the game. Going to be seeing Hover on Groot by Rad, but it looks like Virtus.pro might finally be done with Wolverine. They take that away. And honestly, I really like it. Just considering how much Rad have been looking at it, leading on it, and forcing their opponents to react around it. And also, just look at the scoreboard of last game. Crazy Kitty was a menace. It's a solid removal there by VP.
Well, Virtus.pro also getting the Loki for a night. This is where it becomes a little bit more problematic for Rad to have to deal with, because you'll get one cycle of Gambit ult, but Virtus.pro will have two. So what they can actually start doing is they can open up a fight with a Gambit ultimate, or probably the Loki copy of the Gambit ultimate, and then force Rad to have to burn their God of Mischief onto the Raging Roll Flush copy, and then you have second uncontested Raging Roll Flush for the fight that goes into second stage. But we're getting one-sided Groot on the side of Rad, and I mean, that does, like, potentially pose a problem. This is Central Park. This is one of Groot's best maps, especially when you're holding that defensive first, being able to wall off players, split off the Vanguards. It's also going to force a Mantis ban late on the side of Virtus.pro, so that you don't get the full team up of the Loki, Mantis, and Groot combined. But Rad still have options open if they want to go for something like the Loki, Invisible Woman, Ultron for a triple strategist line. They absolutely can.
I was very worried that they might leave that Mantis up, but it's a solid ban, like you say. While you don't have it for the potential Ultron team-up, you do still have Invisible Woman, but the damage boost could also have been utilized in other compositions as well. So taking that away, and of course that Deitific Vitality and the Vibrant Vitality with the Groot for extra healing output on your defense can be so hard to deal with. Rad, we'll talk about it if it makes it out of spawn, but it looks like they are at least considering an option of bringing out that Ultron for attack. Whereas Virtus.pro, they are looking at potential Gambit style, but they're making sure they're armored up first, as we are seeing a little bit of rocket armor being delivered. And not a Star-Lord, they are going to be running that double setup for the Gambit, but they're running it with Winter Soldier and Wolverine.
I imagine if Virtus.pro see that we get the Torch Ultron committed on the side of Rad, and they are on the attack, so they can, like, go see the composition that VP are on, go back to spawn if they feel like it's not a good matchup into that composition without losing a fight. But if they stick with it, Virtus.pro at some point will be swapping to that Star-Lord, given the fact that we have two casts of Gambit Ultimate to be able to empower that Raging Roll Flush. This was what I was worried about when I saw the save onto Ducky's Groot, is going to be on the Wolverine. This is something that he's been picking up a little bit more of this week, and if he can get the grab onto the Groot, or potentially the Flyer, then this could be huge. Oh, great counter pull coming on through on the side of Rad, so that you just whiff out on getting the connection onto Crazy Kitty.
That's exactly why we saw Invisible Woman banned out from Rad last time, so that they could have more freedom. Vertigo with the perfect pickup. But while they don't get the grab onto Ducky, they are able to get the pickup. That's a nice blow up from Virtus.pro to keep the momentum and keep a hold here. Smash Des is in the air, mostly uncontested, at least for the moment. But it's not something the Virtus.pro are at least too worried about at this early stage. They've got the Rogue, so they can try and dive in once they get a little bit higher. And it looks like Rad going to be adjusting themselves here. Full compositional adjustment. Not wanting to deal with those flyers, they realize that they might have to deal with Wolverine and stuff like that, so they're going to try and go for a front to back. They brought out the Moon Knight, they've got the Groot for the combo, and they've got themselves a lot of combo potential here.
Yeah, but what Virtus Pro have is 2 casts of Gambit Ultimate in one fight already. Dridro's got Raging Roll Flush, and Virtus Pro will just use it to go in. Rad have no defenses outside of this regeneration domain, but that's going to be crumpled up and discarded very, very quickly. This is just a one-sided fight coming on through from the side of VP. Rad will take it, will lose it fairly quickly, and come back into this next one. But like we said, you don't just have to worry about one cycle of that Gambit Ultimate. Saipe is going to have his, and potentially that's going to pair with Nevix on the Rogue to have that Heartbreaker and hit into Rad's back line before Mash can find a copy.
Ducky's not even ready for the Straggling Prison yet, so you don't have to worry about using it defensively, but it is getting close. Saipe hovering, getting ready, and here they come. Raging Royal Flush, round 2, just as Rad step into a position where it's going to be extremely hard to retreat. Kraken Impact to make sure that they're going to clean this up, taking out the Loki clones on the way through. Trooper's Fist, and they don't get the full team wipe this time, but what they do get is another full delay with 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining, while as Dridro is halfway towards Raging Royal Flush number 3.
Well, Rad have Strangling Prison and Hand of Khonshu, or Kraken Impact. They have 2 ways that they can try and follow up, but Virtus Pro, understanding this, could have Nevix just hit in before Rad make the push to drain those ultimate cycles, or they can just split their team so that precious few people actually get caught out and the rest of the team are able to survive. Mash gets the copy onto the Gambit with the God of Mischief, and we see the Hand of Khonshu used not with the Grid Ultimate, but to cut off the disengage. Brilliant wall from Ducky, stops VP from being able to play from behind point and look for a recontest opportunity with that Heartbreaker empowering their walk up. Finzy's going to go onto the Strange for the teleport. Nevix comes on through with the Heartbreaker. Rad having to make a big step backwards, but unfortunately it did connect onto the Invisible Woman, and they've lost Smashness to that Bucky before the boundary can save them.
And now with the portal coming back in, it's a 6 versus 5 in favor of Virtus Pro until Smashness can rejoin the team. Sparker has a beautiful high ground and another numbers advantage who takes down Mash, but he is punished, picked off by Ducky, who has that Straggling Prison at the ready, and a lovely group of people hiding in a hallway. They just need to make sure that they have a follow-up. Finzy playing like he has Eye of Agamotto, but it's a follow-up for the Gambit to push on through to just get another team wipe with only 20 seconds remaining. And Rad, they're going to have to do something desperate even to touch the points at this rate, and it's Crazy Kitty moving for the portal. They do have Smashness in position to potentially try something crazy to touch the point, but he's very outnumbered, he's very isolated, but that will mean that the portal does come through, and it's last-ditch effort, last chance salute for Rad. Vi taken out immediately, Eye of Agamotto at the portal entrance to take out the healing. Mash is down, Kitty's down, Lugi is down, and Virtus Pro are about to full hold Rad.
Well, I mean, Na'Vi poked the bear, and Virtus Pro woke up from hibernation not a happy team. They have come to play, and they're managing to complete the full hold on Convergence versus Rad with different compositions too, like getting the Loki Gambit. When we saw that in the save slots, it was like, okay, how are Rad going to be able to beat this? And Virtus Pro just did a very good job of being able to hold close and always determine the tempo. Like, they had the Gambit ultimate uncontested, so you get to go through. The ultimate acceleration gain that means that Virtus Pro are the ones benefiting from the ultimate economy, as opposed to Rad, who that fight was so one-sided. They lost it so quickly. They don't even really benefit from the amount of damage that they're taking to build up their strategist ult. So the next time Virtus Pro are ready with Loki copy Gambit ultimate, Rad also have nothing to be able to deal with it. And it gets to the point that they just have to try and swap up their composition, play the group, play the Moon Knight, but we don't even really get to see that come through in full because they still have to deal with the Strange teleport, stall out, the Loki regeneration domain, Virtus Pro just giving up a little bit of the point to come back in with yet again a Gambit ultimate to rebuff Rad.
Darker teasing us, don't expect that to see it make it out of spawn, but we would love to see it if he does decide to bring out the Mr. Fantastic. Whereas Rad, like you say, how do we adjust? And the answer is they're just going to try the same thing, but with a bit more prep this time to try and outspeed the Gambit charges. Start off with the Groot early, try and build up that charge. They have Moon Knight, they're going to be able to capitalize off of Saipe, see what they can do with this. However, Fi looking to try and shut that down early with the help of Nevix, bringing out the Wolverine, they have the jump pad, they have the Gamma fastball, they're going to try and pick off Ducky early, which is why Ducky's staying so close to that Ironwood wall, making sure that they have some CC immunity.
Well, the good thing for RAD is that they were able to pick up ticks on the point. It's not a case of if Virtus.pro get on point, you have to hold your ground and fight it. So if things go a little bit south in this first fight, they can just kite behind the point. But at the moment, they're just playing the spam angles from main. Like you said, with this Moon Knight, Groot's really defensive as a character, and you can literally just have Ducky wait around that corner. But no one's clearing out fight at the moment, and this is getting very dangerous. If this Wolverine is able to find a grab onto a strategist with the rocket boots, this could be absolutely devastating for Rad's team to have to deal with. He's looking for his opportunity, takes the high ground. Vertigo has to be ready. This Invis has to get the counter pull with force physics, or Rad will lose a player.
Mag's up there with him, so they're in position to try and engage onto this. Vertigo is currently the one playing close enough to it, so he could be the one who gets caught in it if they're not careful. Here comes the Raging Royal Flush, number one, with immediate drop of the hand of Conchu for the commitment, and the Banhammer from the Deadpool to try and hold this Smashness, barely surviving after the main engage. And this time Virtus.pro's initial engage is repelled, at least temporarily, but now they're fighting in the neutral, trying to get into that backline with Nevix, with that Gambit team off a huge amount of extra burst damage, enough to take down Vertigo. Crazy Kitty is picked off by Cypher. Sparker's on a Moon Knight on his own and has a beautiful choke point. The deflections are coming up dividends, and suddenly Virtus.pro have so much control. They get Kraken impact. Smashness cleans out too. They've got a touch because it's right on the limit, and Loki is gonna be getting out of there, or that could be resets, utilizing the group wall for at least a little bit of protection, as Virtus.pro are still contesting this.
Royal Flush from Dridro. Mash gets the copy, but not onto the Gambit. Invisible Woman, but unfortunately, two are outside of the boundary. Mash goes down too, which means boundary falls, and Rad might be falling alongside it. Virtus.pro are able to complete the push. I really like the vision coming through from Rad's comp, the fact that they knew that Wolverine could be a problem. They're playing the group, but instead of leaning onto Lugia going for the Thing, which is more immune to the Wolverine pressure, they decide to field him onto the Vanguard Deadpool instead, because out of every hero in that lobby, he's the one who can actually keep pace with the Gambit build-up of Raging Royal Flush alongside that Loki. So we got to see the Banhammer, we got to see it being utilized in full, where Rad can just have the hand of Conchu, have the Banhammer. When Virtus.pro tried to make that first move with the Raging Royal Flush, Rad have means at their disposal to be able to live the first stages of that fight. It was, again, just the problem of what happens next, right? Nevix on the Rogue has Hots as one coming on through from Dridro alongside Finzi, which means that the Vanguard damage in neutral before you even equate the ultimate potential is so high that if they get into that backline, Rad will very quickly fall.
They used too many tools on the first one. Like you said, they stabilized it. It was a great idea to bring out that Deadpool for sub-sustain, but they just could not hold for long enough. It's a good setup, but Rad just unable to keep up with Virtus.pro, who are now 2-0 up in this best of 5 series, one away from moving on in this lower bracket. What do Rad have left, Moxie?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact as well that they had, like, the potential to go for the Ultron Torch, but they knew that Virtus.pro would have Loki, Gambit, Star-Lord all available, and that they could just not go for the Torch composition because it would fold the moment that we got the first Galactic Legend Gambit ult up. But we'll have to see. Can Rad manage to win out the next map and continue in the series, or will Virtus.pro close us out 3-0? We'll be back with the next map after this break.
So we did see Crazy Kitty getting his claws retracted a little bit without the Wolverine there, but we were hoping to see a little bit more of what Rad had improved on Central Park. The problem is, Tetcher, we didn't see much of Central Park. They got full held, and then Virtus.pro able to make it 2-0.
We were talking about how these teams have incredible aggressive setups and how they've been able to triple push basically every single time, and we broke that curse. Cast a curse in a full swing today as just a full hold, thanks to the fact of Moxie was harking on about it for a very good reason. Double Gambit is really good. What do you have to deal with it? They started to work out how to deal with it, but by that point it was far too late. As we looked at Yggdrasil next, we may see similar ideas here.
I'm a little bit worried because it's the oldest team in Marvel Rivals Esports on the oldest map, Moxie. It's a map that we haven't seen RAD actually play on at all, so it's them sort of hoping to keep their cards close to their chest. But on the subject of cards, when you have Gambit on the other team and then a Loki copying the Gambit, so there's like 2 sets of cards held close to the chest, it feels that Virtus.pro are going to be leading the line with where these fights are happening and when, just because they can.
Not just that too, but also Rogue and Magneto. And if they wanted to, Star-Lord as well. Like, I feel like when RAD go into like the ban draft, this I think is one of the reasons why a lot of people wanted to just take the Gambit out in the instant ban first, so you don't have to weigh up, like, do we take out the Rogue? Do we now have to take out the Star-Lord? And you can just focus on going for the strategists instead, as opposed to things that the Gambit will be able to push up in terms of tier rating. Because, yeah, that Rogue was problematic. Tetra was talking about it a little bit earlier, like saying, oh yeah, we haven't really seen as much Rogue so far, but you do see her with Gambit, and she is very much a presence that is felt, both in terms of the backline, but also the Vanguard. The burst damage that she has with that team up, plus the ability to help sustain her own team, is really, really strong.
So looking at like what RAD like to go for on just convoy maps typically, it's not been a bad run for them. They've only lost an Arako, which was against Shikigami, I believe. It's a little bit worse for Virtus.pro actually, because they did lose Midtown and Museum of Contemplation yesterday in Na'Vi, so they're 2 losses out of 4 total games played. It does feel a little bit like something has to give. We've mentioned it a lot with Virtus.pro of like, you can't ban everything. Something has to be left open. But would you want to see the pivot away from just getting rid of the Gambit and everything connected? Problem is that you give Sparker Elsa, so like, what the heck do you do?
Usually lose, but maybe RAD can prove us something different here. Right now they've been leading on the Elsa, but Elsa is one tool, I feel. She's one of the best tools that we have right now. The percentage damage, the mobility, the actual burst, the Glatrox, just so much power. But as Moxie mentioned, what do you get when you have the Gambit? You have Cleanse, you have Raging Royal Flush ×2, especially if you let the Gambit through, let the Loki through to combo with it. You empower Rogue, you empower Magneto, you empower Star-Lord to make him as good as Elsa in some phases and as good against Flyers. It's just so effective at enabling other things, and it's why it's been the primary ban in a lot of these cases.
It's a tricky point for RAD to be in, Moxie, because I think especially you have a game plan clearly. There's a way that you want to do the draft, but there's still these gaps happening where you're going up against Gambit Loki. If you stop protecting the Loki and banning up the Mantis might get through, etc. It's hard for RAD now because you either stick to your guns here or you have to pivot, which might not have been the game plan.
Yeah, and I think Virtus.pro as well, like they've pivoted away from just like relying on the Captain America. I feel like for them, that was something that they would obviously like have to do, since Na'Vi showed banning out the Cap does mean that the team is slightly weakened in comparison to what it is when the Cap is in play. And other teams might be thinking like, oh, okay, wait a minute, there's a vulnerability here that we can expose. So the fact that Virtus.pro are coming back and not playing the Cap like at all so far today is very much a statement saying, hey, we're not crutching Captain America. We can still win this round even without him in play as we get ready to go into that ban draft. And no, Tetchel. We're still not seeing the Gambit instant ban, which means that, oh yeah, there we go. One Gambit save coming on through from sort of RAD this time though. So it will be mirror Gambit, and probably both of these teams now going to be thinking about, okay, do we have to remove the Loki, or is it more important we remove the Mantis? As with Gambit getting through, I think now the strength and ball of court does go into the God of Mischiefs.
Yeah, double Raging Royal Flush versus some damage boost. We do see the trade leaning a little bit more heavily, at least, for the God of Mischief. And yeah, so far, identical. It would be very weird if we don't see a Loki here, but it is possible. Like you say, the Mantis is still an enabler for characters like a Star-Lord potentially, or if they want to go for a bit more of a Flyer style, but we're seeing Loki taken out on his home turf, being removed right away. This is where we've been seeing a lot of Invisible Woman sneaking into ban phases so far, but Virtus.pro immediately hovered the Wolverine for half a second there, still a little bit traumatized from earlier on.
I think it's a good play here as well, because a lot of teams will use like fastball special just to break first corner on attack in the way that you would send a Venom in to dive the backline, just creating that split focus so that your team has a little bit of an easier time pushing the front line round corner before you get taken out. with a defense advantage. But speaking about advantage, Virtus.pro are actually going to be using that next save, not for the low key like last time, but to make sure that they have a rogue to be able to pair with the Gambit. So this is going to also mean now that Starlord might be the next ban coming on through from the side of RAD, they might want to be able to go like head to head with that rogue, because if not, Virtus.pro will have like two characters, both of whom pair really, really well with the Gambit, but it's Invisible Woman instead. So no force physics, no engagement aggressive pulls to force someone out of position and leave them vulnerable. That will be happening, just only on RAD's side.
They're going to secure it one side. It's now Virtus.pro. Are they worried about the potential for a rogue on the side of RAD as well? They know that they can play it, but are they worried about it, or do they once again try to get rid of that Groot, taking away some of the defensive plays, especially on some of those later points, removing it from the board nice and early? But this does mean that rogue is still available, not removed from either side. So if RAD can play it, and it looks like they're looking into it, Lugia going to be trying to capitalize, and we're seeing Magneto picked up as well. But Mantis slips through for both teams, so we're going to see some very heavily enabled duelists this game.
Yeah, Mantis and Ultron. So Virtus.pro instantly are like, okay, cool, we're going to be able to defend with a triple strategist line. We're going to have 12% damage boost from our Mantis coming out onto Sparker, who does not get the Elsa, but still gets Hypercarry Duelist in the form of Jean Grey. Nevix and Finzi will be able to get the team up with Saipe on that Gambit as well. So what you have from Virtus.pro is two very fast accumulating ultimates, Rage of Ultron and Raging Royal Flush, which when you then add in the acceleration of ultimate build-up onto that equation, you have a very fast cycling Virtus.pro who'll hit their ultimates, but also be at a high damage peak in neutral with the one-sided Mantis currently showing in the composition. So for RAD, it's all about Smashness. Like, how much can the Starlord get done in terms of being able to deal with things like the Ultron, but also having to challenge the poke pressure coming on through from the Phoenix?
Smashness exit spawn, gets almost sent right back into it, but is able to tank on through. In terms of speed of ultimates, you are right with Virtus.pro charging up quickly, but it is a one-sided Vanguard Deadpool for Crazy Kitty to at least try and keep up, try and equal, similar to what we saw in the last round as well. But for now, first corner being given up as they immediately try to hold it on that first defensive point. Holding at the top of the hill, forcing RAD to step up into them, and they're going to do so with Rogue immediately diving into the backline, trying to chase on in. Lugia with a lot of extra pressure. Ducky takes some damage from it. Crazy Kitty is already charged up and commits to the backline, trying to take them down. Nevix will get dropped nice and early as RAD making the most of their quicker charge speed to push on in and take a nice little cheeky early bit of distance. And we're not seeing Portal here, so we're not going to see a Portal re-engage. They might just try on foot here, as they've still got Magneto. Nevik is going to swap, so they're going to try and bring in the reinforcement.
Yeah, they're going to try and bring in the reinforcements, but they have to worry about faster built-up Gambit ultimate coming on through from the side of RAD. RAD aren't going to go for first turn, though, so Saipe has the opportunity to be able to match. Both the Raging Royal Flushes comes on through, but Crazy Kitty's already fallen, so Virtus.pro have 6 players up in comparison to RAD's 5. And that Raging Royal Flush was used before Smashness hits Galactic Legend. Meteor M from Ducky still in play, so part of it will be protecting the Galactic Legend alongside that Guardian Boundary coming on through from Vertigo, as Smashness gets the Galactic Legend off but hasn't been able to take out the Ultron. Rage of Ultron attempts to stabilize VP's side. Vertigo still holding on to the invisible boundary, has to have it in the pocket for when Dridro's Mantis' Soul Resurgence kicks in for Virtus.pro to set in motion yet another strategist ult to try to turn the fight.
They're going to get mirrored here. Invisible Boundary for the Soul Resurgence to get a little bit of sustain with Blast Barrage on the high ground, but no one's getting dropped low here. Media into the backline, but a beautiful dodge from Vertigo and Heartbreaker. Lugia chasing on in, knowing that they've managed to outlast most of their opponents, so they can just come in for a hard dive, shutting down any reinforcements, preventing an Aya Bakamoto, and that will be RAD claiming the first point. And finally, it looks like they're rolling it very effectively here, and they even get a nice stagger onto Dridro as he attempts to rejoin the team.
Yeah, that's huge, because now RAD can make much more of a forward play for space on second, right? Virtus.pro have no high ground control. They also don't have first corner control. So they're already going to be fighting up against, like, just taking all of this poke MASH is equalizing ult build though with Saipe, so VP won't be able to rely on something like first Gambit ultimate into Galactic Legend to reopen those spaces. It's going to be a straight up mirror as MASH gets the ult up first. VP were doing a little bit too much poke, and that allows RAD to move forward. Out comes uncontested Raging Roll Flush, and Virtus.pro just have to give up this fight. They know in the next one though, they've got advantage. It's base Galactic Legend versus Gambit empowered Galactic Legend.
Which is a slight advantage, let's be honest. Some might call it one of the most powerful compositions we've had since the release of Gambit, but we'll call it slight. Vi moves over to the White Fox for a little bit of counter dive to try and help deal with Lucio, who's piling on the pressure here. And there's the wind-up Saipe, gonna pull the trigger to commit for this hold right in front of the objective. Lugi's gonna try and lock down some of the extra aggression. Meteor M is enough to take out Nevik to keep the pressure on the board, but Sparker is uncontested in the sky, drops low, but is enough to take down one as they removed Deadpool from the board. In the meantime, though, Vertigo's got a beautiful angle there, keeping their front line topped up without being too contested. Guardian Shield to keep them topped up as Virtus.pro are going to be able to push them off the board with the help of that Soul Resurgence. Vertigo is so close to that invisible boundary, holding it, charging, leaping for the objective to allow them to push onto it. Gives them the time just before the Heartbreaker of Nevik comes on out. Crazy Kitty rejoins the fight to keep the pressure on lockdown with Meteor M from above from Vinci to take out Crazy Kitty, to take out anyone in the backline. But RAD are holding it together, at least for the moment. But what they haven't done is displace Virtus.pro off the objective.
That comes now. Vertigo gets Nevix, Banhammer comes on through from Crazy Kitty, and if all else fails, you've got Raging Roll Flush coming on through from MASH. First, you just have to come through against this White Fox ultimate. Kumiho Unleashed is going to be put right back into White Fox base form as Sparker tries to come back on the Wolverine, though we do have a slight pause. So the action will come back to our cams in a moment as RAD will be able to pick up that second checkpoint. And I'm really happy, actually, Tetra, that you talked about the positioning coming on through from Vertigo, because it's not just the positioning from the Invisible Woman who had such a good angle, getting to play that left side corner. It's also the fact that RAD understand, okay, Virtus.pro, they've got closer respawns, they're about to hit ultimates, they're about to hit rogue ultimate, which means we absolutely have to stack up all in one line to make sure that Vertigo's primary hits onto every one of us, and we have Invisible Boundary up in time to hold our ground, and we don't have to play full retake walk up onto Yggdrasil Puff, which has been so problematic in the past. The moment you lose one fight on second, you get hold on choke.
It worked out perfectly for them. They were also able to keep Gambit safe in that position as well, while Sparker's just farming people down the main walkway. These two are just making sure that Ducky is alive on the point. As long as one person's alive, you are taking resources away from Virtus.pro because they have to keep someone on the point or it's capturing second objective. So making sure that they had that positioning was absolutely essential. But I also want to bring up, I talked about it earlier, but you talked about it last game, just how impactful this Vanguard Deadpool as the third Vanguard has been for RAD. We saw it as third Vanguard a little bit in our early group stages, then it sort of meant to second Vanguard for a bit, and now it's back as third Vanguard again, but it's just been enough, to outpace the members of Virtus.pro in a lot of these fights and give RAD some of these more aggressive positions that they've been desperately looking for this whole series.
It sort of goes back to very early on in the meta. If you want to sort of peek behind the curtain, a lot of teams were actually okay with letting Gambit through. One-sided, because they would just go for the Vanguard Deadpool. They knew how quickly Banhammer would be able to build up. It dodged entirely the generation of ultimate nerfs because it has its own separate system. So it's just based around time as opposed to ult charge that you can pull it off, and you have it up pretty much every second fight with the amount that you're able to pull on through. But Virtus.pro are going to be swapping things up slightly. Fi's actually going to be rolling out on the Daredevil now, but MASH is just going to keep Rad's momentum going. Heartbreaker not coming on through just yet from Lugigo. This is just base dive rogue damage with the hearts as one, emboldened by that Raging Roll Flush. And VP, they had no strategist ults to be able to try and stand the tide.
That was a steamroll in that fight there by RAD, taking advantage once again of the slight momentum they had. Fight on that Daredevil, like you said, but just got taken down so quickly, taking out a second time here. Smashnez has got the range of 2 losses under them right now and are trying to bring it back and keep Rad's hopes alive. The Captain America has finally come out from Fincy because they need a hero, they need hope, they need someone who can do this all day to delay this, because right now the rest of the team is getting trapped in spawn. Bad Hammer going to be coming on out. Sparker in mid-air, taken down, and Crazy Kitty is picking up one more with the invisible boundary on the point to delay them even longer. Dridro with the Fate of Both Worlds to just get the healing on the board, to buy them some time, to allow everyone to respawn. But they're so staggered, Moxie. So many members are just getting picked off one by one. Fincy falls, allowing Nevix to come in, who then falls, allowing Fi to come in, who's getting taken down. It's 1 by 1 as RAD take the triple cap.
Yeah, that Unicorn Shield as well from Crazy Kitty. Like, when Virtus.pro, like you mentioned, have to basically play the relay race. We call it bouncing the point, right? You'll see it a lot on Dominations, that you can extend your hold for stall. We also see it all the time on Convoy as well, so you can try and just, like, keep it there before it hits the final checkpoint, and you can funnel your players with the closer respawn from defense to, even if you're losing the fight, still chip down that time, because sometimes that can be enough, burning your opponent out of that time bank on their attacks. So if you go into OT, you can still complete the lead.
Looks like Virtus.pro maybe adjusting to something a bit more aggressive for their side here. Fi moving on to the Wolverine to try and just get some displacement going on their own side here. Captain America could be stuck with here. Finzy yet to swap off it. And Nevix going to be sticking, of course, with that Rogue, trying to get a little bit of revenge against Lugia Goat, who's just been popping off so far. But so far, this has been RAD doing exactly what they've been looking to do, but finally getting their own Gambit on the board has been a massive boom. We can talk about how Crazy Kitty's been charging up so well and been getting them a lot of these fights, but Lugia Go engaging with the blessing of Mash has just been fantastic to watch, just taking out Virtus.pro before they can even react.
Yeah, and they've got the Hearts as one team up as well coming on through from their side, both the Mag plus the Rogue, and getting to play for that ultimate cycle, that Galactic Legend Raging Royal Flush. VP, I don't think, they won't commit to the Captain America. It's more valuable on the defense, since you can just like have your Captain America split off from the main fight, go still at the objective, or put the pressure on the backline. With this, you want to just match the Mag. You need to have the same amount of neutral damage, potentially even higher with your poke, right? Because you're running that Phoenix on the side of Sparker, who's already almost halfway to his first ultimate, which is absolutely insane. But he is also getting to just shoot at a triple Vanguard setup, as Saipei's been able to break up onto the high ground. He is uncontested, catches onto Mash, which is now going to have a domino impact into the rest of Rad's team, because Saipei is going to be ahead of first Gambit ult in comparison to Mash, who out of this fight loses the opportunity to keep up.
First ult in general will be Crazy Kitty, who's going to send up the Bad Hammer, but Ducky's already been taken down, so now it's a 6 versus 4 in favor of Virtus.pro. The Bad Hammer finds nothing. RAD are going to find the spawn door as they are sent back. Virtus.pro very much mirroring their opponents here as they take a dominant first few fights, keep full control, and they're pushing all the way in. RAD not looking at Portal. There we go. I was about to say they cut that very close. There's the Guardian Shield to make sure that they can get it off safely, but they are cutting this extremely low on time. And in fact, they're going to maybe mirror. They might be mirroring a Shikigami strat here by going for a quick re-engage out of the Portal to at least try to hold them at the gateway. Diving through into the backline. They find Dridro, and he is eliminated here. RAD, they don't get the defense, but they do learn something from Shikigami.
Yeah, they take a page from Shiki's book. They have to be careful that Lugia does not fall, but we've actually managed to flip the map. Dridro's going to be massively split from the rest of the team too. As we get, great wolf grab actually coming on through from Fi, just putting Duck into a position where Dridro coming out of spawn can set the freeze up onto the Strange the moment that he's on the ground. And VP, well, yeah, it was a little bit of a rough start against that Strange TP, adapted perfectly.
That was a great way of doing so. The wonderful re-engage coming in from Dridro there to just capitalize off of Fi, do some damage to the flipped members who were trying to deal with the rest of Virtus.pro. Beautifully executed, and once again, RAD unable to take control of the high ground as much as they maybe would have liked. but they are charged up with an invisible boundary. They are getting close. They just got themselves that Raging Royal Flush, and they're committing to it right away. Don't give Virtus Pro time to deal with it. Media M's going to be coming on in to try and counteract and block at least some of Smashness's damage. Finzi will get melted. Dridro, even with all their healing, isn't enough to tank on through. His last stand comes out from Fi to look for a turnaround, but finds nothing. Taken down, and RAD, they burn a lot of resources, but they still have 3 ultimates, and they're able to hold it before reaching that second corner.
Yeah, Virtus Pro, like, by going for this Phoenix, they have a lot of good damage in neutral and also pick potential, especially with the stun. Plus, you're allowing Fi a little bit more survivability, but when it comes to Gambit, Mash just has the advantage with Smashness on the Starlord, synergizing perfectly to the part that we actually saw Finzi have to commit the Meteor Amp to try and absorb parts of it. I say parts because it broke almost instantly. As we get very aggressive invisible boundary coming on through from RAD, they knew that Dridro had already burned Fate of Both Worlds in the fight before, having to try and consolidate some of the incoming damage from that Starlord, and they don't have it to be able to heal through such an aggressive hold. Endsong Inferno from Sparker does find the connection. Nevix too got the Heartbreaker off, but RAD were able to react with their ultimates in time before they lost them, and have continued to hold Virtus Pro at the pass. Now we're just looking at these Gambits. Both Slipe and Mash are so very close to them, but as we covered before, Tetcha, Smashness, if he gets that Galactic Legend up, can be the winning factor for RAD's team.
Vertigo interrupting 5 once again with those force physics, showing why the Invisible Woman is sometimes a priority in these matchups, and that's enough to slow down Virtus Pro for at least a little bit more. You mentioned it, Smashness at 90% now for that Galactic Legend. If they can drop that with only 2 minutes 20 on the board, that will give them a little bit more time. They might be able to just slow roll this and delay as long as they can, but it's going to be Virtus Pro that commit first. Smashness mirroring it from the other side. Sparker takes him down though, mid-air, preventing the capitalization. It's a double, and Virtus Pro, they break through the biggest threat that RAD had to offer.
Huge pick comes through from Sparker. Finzi with the Meteor Arm just buying VP the opportunity to hold their ground instead of kite out the Galactic Legend combo, and Sparker gets the shots off onto the Starlord to shut it down before it shuts the rest of the team down. We are headed now into one of the more harder parts of Yggdrasil for these attacking teams to be able to pick up. Usually it becomes an ult dump just to be able to try and beat these closer respawns, with RAD just having one opportunity, one ultimate to break this fight, to stall it out for as long as possible. Split push 2 potentially as well, not coming through from main, but taking that high ground approach allows Ducky to be able to hit some poke to build up the Meteor M and get his position on the point. Crazy Kitty too, just providing the extra layer of shielding with the Unicorn bubble, comes on out into the fold with that Heartbreaker close enough to Virtus Pro that Dridro has to be able to have enough distance, hits the Fate of Both Worlds before the Rogue can make connection. So Virtus Pro do have survivability, but they have to complete the shield off against the Meteor M. They've got the curtain in place from Finzi. Meteor M has to redirect. Sparker's able to dodge out of damage with the end song, and Fi gets the hit of Last Stand, but Vertigo dodges it and still has invisible boundary in play, and RAD have been able to establish a hold. And yet again, Tetcha, we see on the horizon Starlord and Gambit ultimates ready to go, but not before Saipe gets his online first.
As our colleague, like they've been calling it, the Raging Royal Legend will be shut down as they take out the Starlord early. Fi finally able to capitalize, gets a double, and that's going to be Virtus Pro breaking this hold. It's only delays for RAD right now before they regroup for that final point of defense. Just under 2 minutes left on the board for Virtus Pro to mirror, and this is looking very familiar to that second map they had in the group stages. But the difference is, if Virtus Pro are able to take this, they are 3-0ing this series. If they can take this in overtime, if RAD can hold this, they're still in it. This is tournament life on the line in the preseason as they look for the opportunity. But Starlord at the ready, Mash at the ready. The anti-heal is set up, trying to weaken them before they get the chance. And it's interrupted! Heartsealer gets it just up, and it's interrupting Smashness before he can fully charge up the Galactic Legend, meaning they do not get the full setup here. It's enough to take down Finzi, but now Smashness has a very disjointed Galactic Legend combined with Mash, who's already used the Raging Royal Flush.
I will say for RAD, though, this might actually work out better for them. They had uncontested Gambit ult, right? Which means that Virtus Pro had to give up that forward space. And Finzi, knowing that Smashness still has Galactic Legend, has to now hold Meteor M since you don't have a strategist ult just yet to be able to heal through it, which is brilliant news for RAD because it means that they'll know exactly when Sparker wants to use the end song to potentially look for that combination. There's the Meteor M. This Galactic Legend, though, it was bait. They knew Finzi would react with the Meteor M, and we just get put into a state of limbo until both of those ultimates are done. Now we get the actual hit. Banhammer leads Lugia go into that back line, and Sparker disappears in a puff of smoke before you even get the opportunity to hit end song.
Fate of Both Worlds came on out, but it's a 4 versus 6 right now. But spawns are close to Virtus Pro. They will be able to reinforce quickly, and immediately you see RAD. They don't overextend. They know they've won the fight. They let them retreat. They pull back. They take cover, and more importantly, they make sure that they're not building up too many of Virtus Pro's ultimates so that they can re-engage once Virtus Pro step out of spawn with the Heartbreaker, Invisible Boundary, and Meteor M, because overtime's on the board. So if you're going to burn cooldowns, now's the time. Wolverine looking into the backline, taking out 2. Dridro finishes off Crazy Kitty. Smashness falls, and it's RAD going to be absolutely routed here. Finzi was taken down, but he'll be able to rejoin nice and quickly because Virtus Pro dominated that fight. And with overtime still in their favor, all they have to do is to full push this final point. RAD, looking at their ultimates, they have Raging Roar Flush, but they don't have Galactic Legend.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Virtus Pro have to push almost all the way through. Sparker on this high ground angle, not able to find the elimination thanks to the Unicorn Shield coming on through from Crazy Kitty. There's the Raging Roar Flush, and this is uncontested. Virtus Pro, it's OT. They can't afford to back out. Fi comes on through with the last stand, and that might be enough. Virtus Pro, can they live? They were able to get past the Raging Roar Flush uncontested, but they're still losing their Vanguards on the point itself, and that overtime is going to burn out so quickly if they lose more players. 3 still up for Virtus Pro, but they've been rerouted out of the fight, zoned entirely away by RAD, and RAD pull the map versus Virtus Pro. The moment that they're able to just like free up that map space with uncontested Raging Roar Flush and just push VP back and do it yet again with Galactic Legend, it works out so perfectly in their favor, to the point that, honestly, I think the call, even before the Heartbreaker come on through from Virtus Pro's side, would have been like, let's just use one of them. We'll have the second one, we'll be able to get more time, more ultimates out from VP, and then we can play up for another Gambit ultimate when the overtime bar hits.
Quick reminder as well, when we made so much of our talking about those Gambit Star-Lord combos with everything, we gotta bring up that Crazy Kitty seems to have forgotten that he's playing the Vanguard version of Deadpool. 30-6 with 14 of them being finals, 27k damage, which is the 3rd highest in the game behind Smashness and Ducky, by the way. Insane DPS output. RAD still in it. Let's find out if they can keep this momentum going after the break.
Access to one of his main characters of Wolverine, he decided to move over to Logan's best buddy in the whole wide world of Deadpool to actually find a lot of success and at least a map win against Virtus Pro. Virtus Pro, with the choice of map now that the whole pool is reset, they chose to go to Convoy again, this time going to Midtown, which for one, Moxie, didn't go well against Navi yesterday, and secondly, it's a map that RAD are undefeated on, 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to be looking at the ban draft, right? Are we going to see this continuation of both teams getting the Gambit? Or are we going to see one just like bend and go for this Gambit instant ban Elsa save instead? Because now that RAD have started mirroring the Gambit and seeing the success that they had on that last map of Yggdrasil, I can only imagine they would want to continue bringing the Gambit into these compositions when we go to yet another Convoy.
How surprising, I suppose, is it that we saw RAD being able to pick up that last map, Tetra, because we've seen them sort of wrestle with like comfort over meta. Same as Shikigami. What's elevating them to that next level is like playing what they're strong on versus playing what's meta. Here it feels like it was a bit of column A, column B for RAD. The Gambit head-to-head was pretty even. Mash had a pretty good go of it, but also when you could put players like Lugia over on the likes of Rogue and play the likes of Star-Lord and then just triple Vanguard because there's so much like utility that they all bring, it seemed to be like a best-in-slot fit for RAD with those comps.
Yeah, I echo the sentence we heard yesterday of that right now the meta is very, very heavily leaning in favor of the draft, and that was the best draft we've seen from RAD so far. They took the momentum that they got from a very solid draft, were able to mirror any advantages that Virtus Pro had, and then found their own with the Vanguard Deadpool third Vanguard second duelist sort of setup. And also on a map type that they seem very happy with. We've talked about it before, how every time you put RAD in a situation where they're in a convoy or convergence, they will almost always get a triple cap, with the exception of that last Central Park that we saw. Whereas Virtus Pro, you mentioned it before, they've had a couple issues when it comes to that. They've seemingly slipped on a couple of these convoy maps, including the last time, but in group stages where they played this map, their first series against Crownfall, they lost 2 points versus Crownfall. So them taking us here is an interesting choice, but that's their comfort. Let's see how they do with it.
One element of it as well, I think, Moxie, is that there's not many teams that would try to go for an even draft with Virtus Pro, and it was fairly similar there. The only one-sided thing that Virtus Pro had in their favor was the Wolverine, which we saw the pivot from Crazy Kitty to go Deadpool Vanguard was pretty good. The other side, however, RAD had access to Invisible Woman, and Virtus Pro did not. And it does feel that whilst you have a good strategist backline that can play anything, it does complicate things somewhat. Sure, you've got the Gambit, you can play around a little bit more, you don't have the Loki, but like, is that something that like Virtus Pro want to put some stock in? I mentioned that because RAD are very keen on protecting at least Invisible Woman once or twice here, but maybe just want to make it one-sided if they can.
Yeah, I mean, the Invisible Woman was like really instrumental in a lot of those fights too. You're sort of looking at how Virtus Pro played their own Raging Royal Flush in that second to last fight on Yggdrasil third. RAD know that it's going to be a Raging Royal Flush, and what they actually do is Vertigo uses the invisible boundary because it's overtime. VP have to make a play onto the objective itself, so they don't use invisible boundary on the point. No, they go past it and actually use invisible boundary outside Virtus Pro's own spawn to be able to split the team, guarantee lock down some of those vanguards, and start draining away the health bars even before Virtus Pro can try to regroup, so that when they do come back from the respawn, they still have to trundle their way from the spawn to the objective, and in the meantime, the mag is not there to be able to give things like the bulwarks to the team, and VP are bleeding yet more players.
I think one of the things to highlight going into map 4 is just the amount of hero switches that Virtus Pro have had to do. Fi, Nevix, Finzi, all trying to adjust onto different types of compositions. We'll see what they have in mind for Midtown as you guys have a look towards the draft, and whether there's going to be more Gambit play for both sides, more than likely.
They've still managed to be batting out Elsa both times, but in this case, finally, RAD were able to get their hands on a Gambit of their own. Will they continue to do so? So far, the hovers, we will see Elsa removed. Now, RAD, you have one job. Protect the Gambit, as Virtus Pro, of course, continue the theme.
The immersive rogue experience, if you will. Protect the Gambit. That's what you want, RAD. That's what you want to do. You know you want to. Just go for that first save onto the Gambit to be able to mirror it, so that we go yet again into VP, save Gambit. RAD react with a Loki ban so that VP again don't get a return to Central Park with 2 casts of Gambit. Oh, and there we go. Okay, rogue mission complete. Now the question is, do we get to see her with her husband? Ooh. Or are we actually going to see one of these teams divert from the ban draft lines that we've seen so far and try to remove her? Because the rogue has been very, very crucial for both of these teams when Gambit is up at securing eliminations in neutral, but also putting the pressure into forcing the ults when Heartbreaker is coming at the worst opportunity.
While the Mon Ami of Rogue is still a threat, it will be several other characters of powerful enablers here. It's going to be the Invisible Woman taken out on both sides, and the protection of the Rogue from RAD, really making sure that they can just get that backline dive potential with Lugia Goat as effective as possible. And just in case they want to double down, Virtus Pro will take away the Wolverine as well, potentially securing himself a one-sided Wolverine, and this time without the risk of Vertigo dropping Force Physics to prevent them from absconding with Wolverine's ill-gotten gains.
Does mean that Ducky's Groot has been able to make it through. But I think like you're more concerned if you're Virtus Pro about RAD taking out the Rogue to have one-sided Heartbreaker, one-sided Hearts 1 team up. This could be a Star-Lord ban, or this could be a Wolverine ban, especially if Ducky does want to lean towards some of those group plays. Because, like you pointed out, Invisible Woman being unseen on this match does mean that you don't have to worry about things like the force physics. You would still have to contest with the Bulwark, though, coming on through from Mag. And they thought about going for the group ban, but instead pivot over to the Thing instead. So we're removing some of the capacities from Virtus.pro's players to be able to brawl, as well as having things like that Yancy Street Charge to be able to lay the groundwork, quite literally, to debuff the mobility of some of these dive characters.
There's also the opportunity of the throws with the Cosmic Fastball. If they want to do that now, they're limited to the Gamma Fastball version of the Hulk, if they want to pick that up. But for now, RAD, knowing that there's a potential for a Wolverine on the board, it looks like they might not even go for a Rogue at this early stage. They are considering bringing out the Thing of their own. And that is risky, but it looks like they're also looking into a 3 Vanguard, potential 3 strategist setup to just go for a hefty defensive line here. There we go. They're mixing it up a bit. Lugia might still get the Rogue.
This is a throwback, Tetcher. This is, okay, so Iron Fist actually became meta for a while for professional teams after Atlanta, because he was actually one of the best duelists at being able to go toe-to-toe with Groot and also Mag, because of that health percentage to damage that he's able to do. So Virtus.pro, they could potentially go for the Iron Fist. They're looking instead on going for that Punisher as Finzi on the Groot. Fire's going to be moving on to that Moon Knight just for this first push, at least, to try and build up the Hand of Khonshu Strangling Prison combination. As RAD not actually going to be all that stacked up into these small side rooms. They're going to be relying on Ducky doing that instead. They're holding high ground instead before dropping down and contesting the objective actually moving.
Go gets dropped extremely low here, chased all the way back, but will get healed up. The triple Vanguard, triple strategist is enough to take down Cypher, which does mean a little bit of a head start from Mash when it comes to that Raging Royal Flush charge. Thing pushing forward, once again taking advantage of these corners to just charge up a little bit of bonus health, chase them back, but not overextending. If you get caught in the open as the Thing, you're in serious danger. You might have to use your main engage tool as a disengage tool to make sure that you don't get caught out of position. In the backline, Dridro making sure that everyone is topped up and they can charge up a Fate of Both Worlds nice and quickly. On Nevik is trying to find someone isolated, like Vertigo here, for a quick blow up. They can do so, but it's gonna be Ducky who, protecting their team, is gonna be falling on the sword.
BRB, though, brings him back. Crazy Kitty 2 utilizes that Meteor M, catches onto Finzi. Virtus.pro 2 foregoing the Mag in favor of the Groot to be able to set up these Strangling Prisons into Hand of Khonshu, or look to wall isolate off RAD's players, means that they don't have that team up with the Gambit for neutral damage, which you can see Crazy Kitty is doing such a high amount of. Just use Meteor M, already almost 25% to the next one, but now you don't have it to be able to deal with the final judgment coming on through from Sparker that will be empowered by Saipe. Crazy Kitty cuts down Nevix, however, and Sparker with the final judgment hasn't really been able to find the amount of space that Virtus.pro were looking for. Very late Strangling Prison comes on through from the side of Finzi, setting everyone up to be caught out in the CC outside of Vertigo, who does come out with the Eternal Bond dodge of it, and RAD still being able to hold some of their players in position, could well decide to actually commit the Strange Portal recontest coming on through from Crazy Kitty that forces Lugia into having to go for the Heartbreaker just to be able to survive until the portal comes through.
Vertigo goes down, Mash goes down, so it's going to be a waiting portal here. They're going to wait for everyone to go down so they can regroup together, and we're not going to see any risk of a regroup coming in. No attempt at a stagger from Virtus.pro, because if they wait for a stagger, then that's an opportunity for RAD to portal back on and keep that cart without any movement at all. So instead, portal comes out once everyone respawns, utilizing it as cover, making sure it's facing away from your opponents. Don't give them the chance to body block you on the way out or to punish you on the way through. But in comes Ensong Inferno from Fi to look for a little bit of capitalization damage. Body blocked out from Smashnez, who took to the sky there to eat a little bit of damage there. Crazy Kitty also looking to try and wrap around with the Iron Bagamoto, is going to be drained out with the Heartbreaker from Nevix, and it will be prevented before it can stun out that backline. But Sparker is uncontested in shotgun Punisher form and is doing huge damage to anyone who finds himself isolated.
Yeah, I mean, this next fight too, it's usually a coin flip when both teams have Raging Royal Flush, but it's going to be a weighted coin flip on the side of Virtus.pro. They've got Gambit ult, they'll also have Final Judgment to be able to just catch Rad's players. Mash is already hovering that Gambit ult, but can they actually get players past Crazy Kitty with the Eye of Agamotto? Would not be able to stun up the Punisher. Final Judgment means CC immunity, and potentially immunity to all forms of damage for the amount of pocket that Sparker had to be able to just hold down primary and fire away. He truly did become law-accurate Punisher in that moment.
I am immune to damage because no one can damage me if they're already in the ground. Able to take down everyone before they can step up. And Virtus.pro getting some good distance here. You can see Saipe just going to be hovering at the choke point here at the top of the stairs into the basement of the Fisk building and the underground station. Looking to just ping some anti-heal and some damage at anyone who wants to step up. Lugia Goat already on the flank, has the Snowflake for a little, that idle aura for a little bit of extra sustain when they try and get into that backline. Straggling Prison already coming out from Finzi though to try and take them down early. It's a solo, but it's more than worth it because that keeps Virtus.pro all that momentum going as they are able to just burst on through. Emma gets taken down even with her Luna team up, and this is Virtus.pro with nothing stopping them.
Yeah, zero worries, right? Because like you said, you use the Strangling Prison, you catch onto Lugia's flank early before the Rogue has Heartbreaker and hits your backline and drains Geridro out of his ult with Fate of Both Worlds. Rad's actually going to be making some changes. We're going to head into third. The map plays a little bit more into open space as well as verticality. So what they're going to do is they're going to play outside of Fisk building and wait for Virtus.pro to have to walk forward into that open space for the Venom to be able to hit the backline and force out these ultimates, delaying Virtus.pro and allowing Rad to start leading the ultimate economy for the long term. Fi scouting this out is going to come through with this end song Inferno, getting to just bypass Fisk building, open space, absolutely ignored into the backline with the end song Inferno hitting onto the Gambit, and that means that Rad have had to give up a lot of space. Lugia Goat though with that Heartbreaker buys it all back, and Virtus.pro already anticipating the Rogue ult, kite out of it crucially with both of the strategist ults intact.
They're able to retreat back. Virtus.pro having a lovely position here. Venom dives in, immediately retreats up to the high ground to look for a better angle. Wolverine looking to punish Ducky the second they step onto the point. And Crazy Kitty, who's already going to make their way in, and with a numbers advantage, Raging Royal Flush comes on out, and immediately Virtus.pro pull the trigger, both literally and metaphorically. Sparker leaping forward with the zip line to get at least another pickup and force everyone back to spawn.
Well, Mash has got Raging Royal Flush, Smash knows too, but follow up with that Galactic Legend for Rad to be able to get a little bit more real estate, but they're going to have to contest potentially with this Fate of Both Worlds, giving the 40% damage amp to Final Judgment. Oh my goodness, the Feast of the Abyss, and Ducky's absolutely feasting. Comes on through with the anti-heal, sets up the elimination onto Finzi, but not onto Sparker. Late Heartbreaker comes on through from Nevix, finding the connection onto Lugia Goat, but Rad is still making trades here. And that means that the fight is absolutely still winnable for the man without fear as Crazy Kitty dives into Virtus.pro's whole team and finishes them up.
Nicely done by Rad there. They were able to pull the trigger on their Galactic Legend, got one pickup, but then played safely with their positions, even though they were the ones that called the engage, just to make sure that they did not get absolutely mowed down by Sparker with that Final Judgment, so they could re-engage once those ultimates were expired, the Fate of Both Worlds and the Final Judgment, so that they could get the more advantageous entry fight for finishing off any stragglers here. Lugia and Nevix going to be having a lovely duel of the rogues, both just trying to lock each other down for as long as possible as Crazy Kitty enters the backline. The devil is unleashed, and Virtus.pro are once again staggered in spawn, but the problem is, Moxie, they're running out of time.
Yeah, it's wild actually that Lugia is able to survive that, gets grabbed out by Nevix and then wall isolated by Finzi, who's actually going to be swapping off of the Groot onto the Captain Americas. Virtus.pro, they know they're not going to be able to just like walk for free into this dive setup, and like you said, they're running out of time. They have to go for characters who have high mobility and can mark the dive themselves. So Fi swaps to the Daredevil, knows exactly where Crazy Kitty will be playing from. Lugia Goat comes on through with a zoning Heartbreaker, and Virtus.pro just have to give up the space, but in the meantime, time. Finzi swaps to the Captain America, flanks all the way around the back, and crucially will be able to jump onto that objective to hit OT and give Virtus.pro an opportunity of building up to Saipei's ultimate to try to swing this fight. Mash has already got his in hand though, and Rada looking at all of Virtus.pro, knowing that they have to be concerned about the follow-up if they don't find the eliminations here. Nevix is down, Saipei's ultimate's on the board, but it's not getting anything like a Galactic Legend to find these eliminations so quickly for Rad not to be able to deal with it, and that is going to be a hold. Full push not coming on through from the side of Virtus.pro. Rad with the swap onto the dive managed to find the stability.
Mash saw one of the scariest sentences you can see in Marvel Rivals, and that is Fi on Daredevil in your backline. He said, nah, I'd win. Chases him down while his ultimate was still active with an anti-heal and occasion charge, picks them off, and that prevented any extra backup or any capitalization onto the backline if Rad hadn't been able to finish that off there and then. Beautiful performance here by Rad, and now they've finally been able to get Gambit in their hands. They're starting to stabilize, but that was still a huge push from Virtus.pro. 2 points down, huge distance towards the Avengers Tower. This is going to be difficult for Rad to replicate.
Yeah, especially because, like, Virtus.pro, you've got the Groot. Now, if you're Rad, you have to be so worried about someone just stepping up a little bit too far forward and then getting wall isolated. But VP actually, instead of going for the Groot, they go for the Captain America. And I think I prefer this slightly more because if you're playing the Groot, you would sort of just have to play main and low ground and look for wall isolations on something like the Vanguards, which would then mean that Rad would just, well, full push their whole team up onto the high ground and take those positions instead. Going for the Captain America means that you can actually just, like, take the fight somewhere else. You can stall the objective, you can try and guarantee that VP will get as many fights as possible on the defense, not necessarily to win them, but literally to just drain Rad's time bank, because this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Virtus.pro are thinking about, okay, if we don't full hold, let's at least get a good 2 minutes off the time banks that Rad lose an opportunity on second and third.
Seeing Lugia make their way up to the high ground to try and duel out Nevix, try and force them to give away that positioning advantage that Virtus.pro did get with that defensive setup early. Nice pickup from Crazy Kitty. They force them off the high ground and get the pickup from it, and that is a lovely setup. Will we see a portal re-engage from Virtus.pro like we did from Rad as they slowly but steadily pick off the members of Virtus.pro one by one and immediately fly back to Strange? They want a portal back in. They refuse to give Rad the time of day, and more importantly, the time of objective.
Yeah, also the time to build up ultimates. Because Crazy Kitty is very close to a Kraken impact, but Virtus.pro, they'll take the high ground approach and then drop their Vanguards down onto the objective to stall it out, with the Bulwark allowing the Strange to go down and get back up to the catwalk. But in the meantime, we've actually lost Finzi as we get a huge pickup coming on through from the side of Rad. Crazy Kitty's about to have the Kraken impact up and online, and Virtus.pro do not have Raging Roll Flush to get the Purify on the cast of it. Manages to get the Trooper's Fist connection onto Fi. BRB brings the Doctor Strange back, but can you pull off the magic trick of surviving the Kraken impact? One falls, we get a reset, finds the execution potentially onto Dredro, who gets connected onto, has Eternal Bond. If Virtus.pro want to use to be able to stabilize their position in this fight and stop the reset coming on through, allowing Saipei to match the Raging Roll Flush coming on through from Ducky, but the Strangling Prison setup from Ducky.
They put him in timeout, isolating him from the board, but he survives for a little bit. Dredro finally taken down, though. Finzi falls, and Virtus.pro, they burn through the time, but Rad are able to come out ahead, and how refreshing is it to see Crazy Kitty back on that Winter Soldier doing what they do best in Stage 2 of last year. But Virtus.pro, it's now their opportunity. Raging Roll Flush comes on out via Magamoto, but Smashness tanks on through with the final judgment. Takes down one, takes down two! He's eating it, Moxie! They turn it around, and Virtus.pro are routed again. They are burning so many resources to try and delay, but the fact is, this is going to be point number one for Rad.
I don't think the Jeff sticks. I think like for Dritter, it was probably we swapped to Jeff so we can get the speed bubbles, so that we get the opportunity while we've used Strange Portal to get another fight before Rad hits checkpoint, and we can come through with Eye of Agamotto plus Raging Royal Flush, and yep, there we go. Fight attempted, lost. Now onto the Luna instead, as we're going to be utilizing the Idol Aura onto Fi on the Daredevil, but Rad have also swapped Crazy Kitty onto the Daredevil, anticipating VP's change-up, and they've got the sight to be able to match the vision coming on through from the defense. Nevix with the Heartbreaker. Virtus.pro want to be able to secure one fight, so they get all of this map space and high ground to be able to put the pressure onto Rad, and by the time bank left, that they lost out on first. No eliminations off of the back of it. Rad also not really that close to ults. The Heartbreaker drained away the potential to use them. Ducky's got the Strangling Prison, but Crazy Kitty has fallen, and Rad without that Daredevil going to have to be backing a little bit closer to their side of the map, consolidating their resources, waiting for Mash to hit this ultimate before they decide to walk in.
Matt's also swapped off the Punisher, though. He's got that Star-Lord. While he doesn't have the Galactic Legend, he does have Blaster Barrage and just solid attack speed. Takes down one, takes down two, and this is Rad flipping it once again. They lose Mash, but job's already done. Raging Royal Flush was activated as they chase down Virtus.pro into the subway, finishing off the structures. They want to get Nevix. If they can finish off Nevix on the way out, that will be a huge stagger. Dridro gets frozen. Dridro gets just absolutely capped here, as this is Rad pushing into the basement. Virtus.pro, they do still have delays though. They have Fincy, they have Fly, and they have Raging Royal Flush with two people down. They commit to this.
They had to. If they didn't, Lugigo would just first turn with the Heartbreaker before Cypher gets the opportunity to use. So Virtus.pro have to commit the Gambit ultimate while they know that they still have it, but Vertigo, with the fate of both worlds, allows Rad to stabilize through the one-sided Gambit cast and hold their position. Dritro's got the match now though, and Virtus.pro have closer respawns. Fight with Let the Devil out, comes out before Heartbreaker can find the connection. Strangling Prism from Ducky, tries to put the Daredevil into timeout and does complete the elimination as oh, wait a minute. Sparker got the strange TP off of Virtus.pro to stall, but it also meant that Vertigo goes through and freezes the Sorcerer Supreme instead. But that strange TP has allowed Virtus.pro to burst through with the Freedom Charge, and Rad, out of all of their sustainability, have to give up the space, not lose players, and come back with Galactic Legend to finish off the fight instead. Out comes the Star-Lord ultimate, away goes Dridro. Nevix trying to hold the space down with the Heartbreaker, but Lugia goes on absolute fire at the moment, has both of his strategists to be able to back him up, even through the grab coming on through from Nevix, and Mash gets another cast of Raging Royal Flush, which finally should end this fight.
But the fact is, Virtus.pro just burned through so much time. 3 minutes were on the clock when Rad were able to hit that first point, and now they still haven't captured the second one with 55 seconds left on the board, because Virtus.pro, they know they're not holding it, but what they can do is just eviscerate the time bank of Rad as they finally break through. They only have 2 minutes and 13 seconds to make 139 meters. Virtus.pro, they burn some tools, but the time is what's important here.
Yeah, the maximum stall as well. Sparker just like going to the Wolverine to have the passive kick in, so you have to do even more damage to be able to oust that duelist. But Crazy Kitty does have Let the Devil out, something that Virtus.pro are going to have to worry about, as they don't have a strategist ultimate online. They could lose their backline very, very quickly if they're not able to complete this peel. Vertigo too, with Fate of Both Worlds, like Rad have the ultimate advantage, and they're just going to full send it. They get such a huge opening. Virtus.pro want close holding against fist building as well, so it's going to have to be, okay, we go into this fight, we lose this fight, we now make a loss stand for the last push of Midtown. But Rad, they've got Heartbreaker, they've got Fate of Both Worlds, and Smashnez is about to get this Galactic Legend online. If Virtus.pro don't get a strategist ult online or shut down one of these duelists early, Tetcha, this fight could be done.
Heartbreaker is going to come on out. It's going to be mirrored with the Galactic Legend, but Luna's already taken out the backline before they could ultimate. Lugia is able to mirror it, taking it out Nevix. Straggling Prison is dropped from both sides, trapping them in the building, which means that that finish line has a very few bodies on it. They have to rush in with some of the squishies. Down goes Rogue, down goes Gambit, and Rad are evening up the score, Moxie. It's 2-2.
Okay, so what we're seeing at the moment is that the skill divide for the EMEA teams has closed.
Yeah, it's gone.
Massively. Like, the fact that RAD, when they first played VP in group stages, were not able to pull a map, came close, but weren't able to pull a map. Fast forward now, 2 weeks later, they've pulled 2.
Yeah, it's completely different. They came close in the group stages, but they've learned, importantly. We're just seeing them learn everything so quickly. They learned from Shikigami with a portal re-engage. They learned from Virtus Pro giving themselves the gambit in this same series. They're still playing. This is exactly what we wanted to see from RAD. What a run they're going on today.
I mean, great aggression as well coming through from them, identifying that Virtus Pro used like everything that they had available to try to complete that hold on second and then burn the time bank down. So RAD were like, okay, well, we did not have to use all of our ultimates in one go to be able to complete that. In fact, we got to complete that fight in neutral, so we're closer to our ultimates than you are, and we're just going to push before you can build up any economy to win a fight, push us back into fist building, which would eviscerate our time bank to at least 1 minute remaining. Really good heads-up play coming on through from RAD, showing that honestly, where they needed to improve was the macro, and they've been able to achieve that. We're going all the way to a map 5, which we'll be back with after the break.
Oh no, it's happening again, is what Virtus Pro might be thinking, because RAD, the first ever team to take a series off them in a best of 3, might be doing the same in a best of 5. It's gone the full distance for this final map, and it is going to be Celestial Husk to decide. This is a pretty scary thing, because if I'm thinking back to some of those moments, Moxie, where Virtus Pro looked weak last year, and there wasn't many, domination could be scrappy. However, they are 7-0 so far this year. It's been good for them.
Yeah, I think like if you're Virtus Pro, as we talked about, they looked at the areas that they were weakest at, and they made measures to make sure that those were strengths now. The problem for them is that Celestial has like so much is available that you can like play. You can play the triple strategist lines. Ultron's good in 2 out of 3 of the submaps on Celestial Husk. You can play dive, you can play counter dive. I think like honestly for RAD, yep, Jeff too potentially as well. I think if you're RAD, you're just wanting to make sure that you get this gambit, you get this rogue mirror for you, because it's worked out so well so far.
I think Tetra, like the main thing that has brought RAD back is just being able to mirror matchup with the Gambit. Mash has had essentially 2 MVP performances. Managed to get it on Midtown. It was only Crazy Kitty that just eked him out a bit beforehand. He has not only been matched in Side Bay, he's been surpassed him. And the rest of the team from RAD synergizing with Mash, with whether it's team ups or just how Gambit plays, has been nothing short of exceptional.
Mash is a world-class player, and we have known that for a while. Also, just quickly, that graphic, your eyes are deceiving you. RAD did win that 4th map, which is why we are in our 5th one here. But Mash has been finally being given this gambit, as opposed to them sort of letting it through to see if they could maybe steal it with Loki as a priority. It was their own strategy. It didn't work. They adjusted, and now they're enabling stuff like Smashness to just go absolutely crazy on stuff like the Star-Lord. We're starting to see the Wolverine being taken away to just keep adjusting into Daredevils, into stuff like the Winter Soldier to adjust and give them the capabilities they need. And of course, Lugia is just unleashed. Ducky is tanking incredibly and just holding down the front line. I say to people, we saw them put Saipe in the timeout Groot ult earlier on in that last map. This team is coming together magnificently. We couldn't be happier just to cast it.
Speaking of like the Ducky Groot, it has been respected consistently throughout the drafts, with bans out on both sides, making sure it's not going to be one-sided. But the last couple of games have just been Virtus Pro having access to the Wolverine whilst RAD don't. In the last game, it was the Thing, just right at the end, taken out. What element of this game, like Moxie, now that we're going away from like the objective game modes, is it the Vanguards, Duelists, or Strategists that are going to define this draft, or even just how these teams are playing? Because both these squads are just matching up, mirroring each other pound for pound, and RAD are doing well. So what region of roles is it going to be defining this one, do you think?
Strategist. Like, straight up, your whole composition changes if you get Gambit through. If you get Gambit through, you're going to be playing Star-Lord, you're going to be playing Rogue, you're going to be playing Mag. You would potentially still like play Mag without the Gambit, but you wouldn't really want to play the Rogue. And you probably wouldn't want to take the Star-Lord too, especially if the other side gets the Gambit. So like, no. A lot of what both of these teams are going to be playing is going to be determined on that first save slot. What I'm really wanting to see though is that Virtus.pro taking us to Celestial Husk, a map where, as we've said, you can find these dives, and they've been trying to go for the dive. They've also been trying to circumvent it with Phi going to the Wolverine a little bit later on towards their attacking side of the last map. RAD were really prepared to deal with Virtus.pro's dive. Like, they had full counter dive measures in place to the point that Virtus.pro only started winning Hell's Heaven rounds when they swapped off of it entirely. So I'm looking at that and thinking, like, do Virtus.pro continue removing things like the Wolverine so that the Venom and Jeff with symbiotic shenanigans finds more value when we go to this round of domination?
Whilst this is a little bit more precarious ground for Virtus.pro, Tetra, I do remember going back to stage 2 of last year, FaZe almost beating Virtus.pro in a best of 5, but Virtus.pro just having a little bit of stamina to sort of win it out, and then they went on to win the grand finals by qualifying through that route, yada yada. We know the rest of the story, but it is like we have seen Virtus.pro in these moments look iffy, look really rough in some of these cases, but still able to win out best of 5s and then still go on to win events prior. So is it different feeling for you this time? Do you think the Virtus.pro are just like, this is a blip on their radar? Or do you feel like there's some element of the meta that's catching them out? Because looking at quick glances, people are saying Vanguards, right? Why is there no Deadpool Vanguard for Finzi? Why is Finzi being targeted? It just feels that that's only just the tip of the iceberg, right?
I think it would be foolish to like count Virtus.pro out. Like you said, they've looked iffy in the past. Stage 1, they didn't even make it to mid-season. Stage 2, they came very close to losing several series, and then you get to the global finals and they win almost everything with little difficulty. This is a team that we've been talking about just how quickly RAD learned and adjusted. That's Virtus.pro in a nutshell. What were their difficulties in stage 1? The draft and some of the dom maps. They adjusted. They learned so quickly. It's just right now, RAD have a little bit of a head start on the adjustments for them. They have taken the lead in the quick stepping over each other game of trying to take a head start in these drafts. And as such, Virtus.pro was still banning stuff away from RAD, whereas RAD are taking the tools from Virtus.pro and building on them.
Well, so for now, it's whether Virtus.pro, these bears, are going back into hibernation or whether they're going to continue roaring through the losers bracket for RAD, seeing if a different team under the same organization can cause a little bit more of an upset. A perfect map to end this one on, guys.
I mean, it's a little bit of a blast from the past, surely. I mean, we talked about the fact that FaZe almost beat Virtus.pro on this one. Well, this was the map that Virtus.pro beat Chopped, actually, to push them out of contention for Atlanta. And that one went the whole distance, all 3 rounds, and came down to a Psylocke versus Psylocke elimination coming on out with Sparker versus Tuzi. So I think some of these players from RAD will be having a little bit of a flashback as, well, we're going to have deja vu in terms of our ban draft. Elsa instant ban, Gambit save, Loki reaction ban into Gambit mirror save.
What? That's crazy. It's the exact same thing.
Feeling daring today, huh?
It's oh hello. Oh no, we're seeing Virtus.pro ban out the Rogue, and now they might have to give up on their middle ban of Invisible Woman or Wolverine or Groot in order to make sure they still get that Loki removal here, because they slipped it through. They take out the Vanguard Deadpool. They are giving RAD the full option to go for that double Raging Royal Flush. They were like, well, you let us play it. Let's see how you do. Do you have the chops? Pun intended.
I mean, do they go for the Loki save here if you're RAD? Or well, yeah, it's going to be the Loki save. Yeah. You're going for 2 casts of that Raging Royal Flush, but Virtus.pro, like, honestly here, they could just remove the Star-Lord. If you remove the Star-Lord, then it's like Gambit ult can still empower something like the Psylocke, right? Or potentially even the Phoenix, but they're going to remove the Vanguard and say, oh my goodness, yeah, Virtus.pro are just like straight up targeting Lugia's Vanguard, just whole hero pool to force him onto something like really uncomfortable. It does mean though that RAD will be able to have 2 casts of Gambit ult plus that Galactic Legend combination. But Virtus.pro safeguard Finzy's Captain America. RAD will be removing Fi's Daredevil in response, since they know that there will be dive, and they do not want to have to deal with the Captain America having all of the information of scouting the backline before he even shows up.
Now let's see what they look at. Looks like RAD are going to potentially give themselves an access to a Captain America. Going to be following in the footsteps of Virtus.pro as they go for their own protection for Finzy. But like you said, now we have asymmetrical vision gain from the side of RAD. They have Crazy Kitty having access to that Daredevil, and there wasn't a Star-Lord ban. Virtus.pro not going to be following that. Like you said, they single targeted onto Lugia here, so they will be having access to double Raging Royal Flush if they want it, with a Star-Lord at the ready. Because right now, Vertigo is hovering a White Fox, but of course, we're in spawn doors on Dom. These picks mean nothing.
Well, I mean, if you're anticipating Virtus.pro going dive, like, White Fox Gambit's actually a really good backline to be able to react to this, especially because Virtus.pro, while they don't have the Daredevil, they do have the Venom, and Dridro is currently on Rocket, but that's likely going to change to Jeff, to be able to have both the symbiotic shenanigan team up, so that Nevix has more survivability, something which he's absolutely going to need if he's going into the blender of Spectral Surge charms the moment that he shows on up, plus the range. Like, remember, these teams, they're playing on 7.0 patch, you're not playing on 7.5, so Jeff's fall-off has not been nerfed, but what's actually going to happen is we're not getting Jeff. Dridro's coming on the Rocket, so you've got the team up with the Star-Lord instead. Fi gets an additional iframe plus the ability to go force RAD to react to a Star-Lord ultimate and then blip out of that space entirely.
There's a lot of potential here for Virtus.pro, a lot of options to try and force out reactions from RAD, and then of course an immediate blow up, the classic of the Feast from the Abyss and the Dance of the Butterflies from the Venom and the Psylocke. Ducky taking a lot of damage early on, but will get healed up as the team groups up. Lugia also getting tracked, as Sparker is just having a lovely time on the flank here, and RAD not used to this. It's been a bit since they're dealing with this particular style of flanking, whittling down of their front and back line before people get blown up, so they're forced to back up a little bit, give some space, but they're not giving up on the objective yet. They're still willing to take this fight, take this duel. There's that Rocket team up you brought up earlier as they try to take down Venom, but Nevix is a little bit too tanky, going to try and go for the retreat, but is caught on the way out.
Yeah, Virtus.pro is trying to take as many dives as possible in as many different places as possible. So if they get one hit onto RAD, if they lose a player early, it's just traded back with that BRB kicking on through. But RAD are able to actually just bunker up. They only lose one in the form of Crazy Kitty. So Mash staying up the whole duration of that fight means that you've got that Raging Royal Flush. You don't have Galactic Legend just yet, but RAD might not go for the combination. They might just want the confidence, the confirmation that they can hit Virtus.pro before Saipe has the match.
Sparker looking to just build up some charge almost at that Dance of the Butterfly. Nevix into the backline for a little bit of setup, but no commitment yet. Don't want to get taken out of position. Dridro on that White Fox, keeping everyone topped up, but is a little bit behind Vertigo, of course. Sparker taken down by Crazy Kitty, immediately forcing the retreat out of the rest of Virtus.pro, but RAD don't want to give them the satisfaction, the distance, or the time, forcing the chase out with that Raging Royal Flush, and that forces Virtus.pro to regroup, but now they have uncontested Raging Royal Flush.
Dridro is off of the Rocket too. You're on the White Fox to be able to match Vertigo. SmashNet starts off with the Galactic Legend. No mag on the side of Virtus.pro. No Meteor Am to be able to absorb it. So it's Kite behind natural cover. Wait out it to be done. And then come back in with your own Gambit Ultimate and Galactic Legend combo. Ducky with the Meteor Am absorbs it and actually turns the Meteor onto Sparker too. But you lose the mag for it. Vertigo allows RAD to be able to survive the brawl and reposition onto the point, allowing Crazy Kitty as well to send in the Let the Devil out, and Virtus.pro lose Saipe before Dridro can get the heal through with the Kumeho unleashed. RAD wanting to brawl out on point. They know that they're probably going to lose the long-term sustainability of Virtus.pro having that later White Fox ultimate, but they want to get as much point percentage as they possibly can before they do so, and they even force the Freedom Charge from Finzy too.
Dridro got taken down by Crazy Kitty on that Daredevil, forcing out that Captain America ultimate for any kind of sustain because the strategists were forced off the point. It's enough for the flip, but we're still in overtime. Finally going to get ticked up. And RAD, they had the option to potentially portal, but with 3 people down, they instead choose to reset. They forced an overtime flip here. RAD with an incredible start in this domination map.
But what's really problematic for Virtus.pro is using that Freedom Charge. because now, if you're RAD, well, you're 77% to Galactic Legend, you're 75% to Royal Flush, and Virtus.pro have no defenses against it. No mag, no Meteor M to be able to try and just be a pseudo stand-in strategist ultimate. There's the dive coming on through, and yeah, that's what happens when you try and soft dive a White Fox team. Daredevil has all of the information too, perfectly reads out when Nevix is going to go for that hit, and no Battle Recall Beacon to bring the Venom back. Mash has got the ultimate, Smashnez is ready to go. This should be able to zone Virtus.pro off of the point and allow RAD to be able to find the flip.
They're trying to take it soft to begin with, but now they're pulling it once they've managed to get Virtus.pro to back up a little bit. Now they've got the team split in two. They think they can take down anyone on the point and force the flip, and they are right. Virtus.pro off the point, forcing the overtime, but that is the Galactic Legend used up. Sparker has danced the butterfly, and it's going to have to be used or saved for the next round because RAD have full control. Here comes the re-engage. Nevix trying to rush onto the point as Fireball a little bit of time. Sparker does the butterfly is used and doesn't touch. They burn the cooldown and lose the point. That is devastating for Virtus.pro.
Yeah, so unfortunately for Virtus.pro, what ends up happening, right, is Fi was the one contesting point, and he goes down. Dance of the Butterflies doesn't not count as contesting. It's the same as things like CD with Dark Teleportation, with the Worldbreaker Hulk, or any level of Hulk transformation too, because it gives you like that iframe, basically. You're invulnerable through the whole duration, but the game basically says, okay, you're not in the lobby. You're still able to do damage, but you're not counted as being physically present. So what that means is that Virtus.pro lose the round and now lose Dance of the Butterflies, which would have been so good at forcing RAD's players to have to actually stack up. Now you have a dive composition who can play as split as they want to because they don't have to worry about leaving that backline to get shredded by a Psylocke.
0% Psylocke charge. Nevix 95%. At this point, you might as well just charge it and use it immediately just to try and make sure it's at least slightly back in sync with Sparker. As RAD, they have their Feast from the Abyss themselves. Ducky moving off the Magneto here is going to look at the Groots, looking to try and get some controllers to those doorways on this central point area for the lower ground. But it's going to be RAD fighting through the low ground. Virtus.pro take the high ground, trying to push it to the back line. There's that Feast from the Abyss, exactly as we predicted. It's interrupted though. Nevix put on the half cooldown. Focus down, barely gets out of there alive. As Fi, Galactic Legend to try and commit early. The Jet healing from Dridro is keeping the team topped up beautifully. As Similar Shenanigans is also doing huge work on that first initial fight. And RAD, they have been able to hold through this though without using almost a single tool other than looking against Feast from the Abyss. The Devil's been unleashed with Virtus.pro already using a lot of their defensive tools. It's Jeff going to be forced out for some kind of healing output here.
Mash is getting targeted as well by Nevix. They know that this Gambit has the ultimate ready to go before Saipe, but Saipe falls and Mash can just hold the ultimate. Rad's already been able to secure the eliminations to find the fight win. They'll have it for this next one when Smashnez has the Galactic Legend, which means even if Saipe's got the match of the Gambit ultimate, without the match of Galactic Legend, Virtus.pro still lose the coin flip unless they can take Smashnez down early.
Shout out to Saipe for the neutral Purify there against the Groot ultimate, but they still lost the fight. Now they just have to charge up. They can't afford to be taken down early, but Mash can mirror it is the issue. Smashnez looking for a high ground position to see if they can trap someone out of position to smash. Here comes the Raging Royal Flush with the Galactic Legend combo as they push on in to try and chase them down off the point. Mash is once again just playing so aggressively here. They take down 3 members of Virtus.pro, and RAD continues to hold a dominant position on this second point. Virtus.pro, they just can't seem to break through.
The ult economy, though. Virtus.pro, like, they'll use the ban hammer from Finzi because if you fall, you lose all of that ultimate economy. They held their Gambit ultimate. They've got Dance of the Butterflies. Feast of the Abyss 2 means that Nevix has a little bit more self-sustainability, but Crazy Kitty on the Daredevil reads the rotation coming on through from the side of VP. Dance of the Butterfly softens up enough players. Galactic, well, just the Blaster Barrage actually coming on through from Fi, emboldened with that Raging Royal Flush from Saipe, is enough to bag the eliminations. And Virtus.pro should be able to find the flip fight, but RAD, they're not giving it up easy. Smashnez comes back on the Strange, is likely going to try and teleport teleport the team, but it's ever so slightly late. The flip's already come through on the side of Virtus Pro, and that could mean later down the line, RAD have to play into an OT fight without a strange TP to get the regroup. Everyone is there for that Feast of the Abyss, stacking on up versus Nevix, but at the moment, if you're RAD, you don't have an ultimate ready to go. You're waiting for that Galactic Legend, or actually, no, they can't go for the Galactic Legend combo. You're waiting for Mash's ultimate, but in the meantime, Virtus Pro take the initiative and the first turn, invading into RAD spaces so that when the Gambit ult comes through, everyone's a little bit too low to be able to push back.
Dragon Prison comes on out. They're able to take out Saipe on the backline, but it's everyone on RAD. They just did not have to sustain after losing 2 members early on. The White Fox Vertigo is doing everything they can to sustain them through this, but Lugiago is just not getting the healing they need to hold on in this fight. Crazy Kitty is trying to just dash away to look for a reset. They do not want to get caught out here. As Virtus Pro, they've managed to capture the point, and they are not letting it go. They have Dance of the Butterfly, they have Galactic Legend, and they're approaching their own Raging Royal Flush. Very separate from Mash, who will not be able to mirror them this time.
Yeah, I think if you're Virtus Pro as well, like, you're okay with just letting RAD walk closer to you as opposed to trying to send Nevix in for an early hit with this Venom, since Crazy Kitty would be able to scout it out, Vertigo would be able to let the Charm through with that White Fox, the thing that was able to interfere with the Feast of the Abyss in that first fight. Finzi taking a lot of pressure too at the moment, as Lugia's been able to scout out the backline from Virtus Pro. Fi with the peel, Galactic Legend to get them off his Gambit. Symbiotic Shenanigans comes on through from Dridro. Not an ultimate, but for the amount of healing that you can find, might as well be one. And RAD are taken out of that win condition of let the devil out, having to rely instead on brawling on the point as we're about to hit into OT with the Kumeho Unleashed. Smashness with the damage on top of it. Galactic Legend, but no elimination. Saipe was safe, comes back with that Gambit ultimate, and Virtus Pro push forward to take second stage.
Looks like we're going to be evening this up in map number 5 as Virtus Pro holding it together, forced them off the point, and with no portal available due to it being used earlier, we are heading to a third point in map 5 to decide who will continue their journey through this lower bracket. Virtus Pro, was it Lugia who was the problem? Because they're holding it together.
The fact as well that we're going to Codex. We talked about, you know, the Chopped versus Virtus Pro for who would be able to come out with that last spot to Atlanta. Yeah, no, that was decided on this very submap of Celestial Husk. So this is very much deja vu coming on through on the side of RAD. But it does mean that there's going to be a little bit more dive opportunities. This map very much open. But now that we get that Jeff coming on through from Dridro, Nevix has a lot more survivability, even when he's getting scouted out early by the Daredevil's radar sense. Because he has that Jeff just healing him up from afar, or with the team up, he's able to survive the scrutiny.
It comes down to this. 1 point for preseason survival. Otherwise, they're going to be waiting until stage 1, almost a month away, for them to get another chance at some glory here in EMEA. Lugia sticking with this Venom themselves. Vertigo's been putting on an absolute clinic on this White Fox, but needs to hold it as Ducky gets absolutely gagged up on. The healing attempt comes in, but Vertigo just falls on the sword as well. Virtus Pro with their own aggressive engage and RAD. They're going to be getting Shikigami flashbacks as they once again fall prey to a portal engage.
Yeah, VP just being able to just roll through that fight with the portal and symbiotic shenanigans at the start of the round to make sure that there are no trades. Pick up the first point, have not been able to displace Mash though, and he will have first cast of the Raging Royal Flush that RAD could use to make a play to try and push VP out of this position. Finzi very close to that ban hammer, might place it onto the Gambit, but not before the ult comes on out. Dridro with the It's Jeff might be able to find the E. Vertigo utilizes that teleport, puts the pressure onto the strange tail sweep, takes out Nevix. We get the ban hammer, Mash going low, the Fox having to turn around and peel Spectral Surge, looking to charm up the Deadfall, so he's just not able to complete the eliminations on the backline. But Sparker takes advantage of the split, comes through with Dance of the Butterflies, and starts softening these players up long enough that he can just complete the elimination with the dash through after the ult's done.
Fire's down as well, though, so we're seeing RAD at least trying to keep some contention here. MASH making their way back in to try and keep the team topped up because Ducky is extremely low, as is Crazy Kitty with the backline taken down. Virtus.pro, they see blood in the water. They seize the advantage, and they keep control. It was close, but with the strategist being the ones to fall on the side of RAD, it was sustained that one out for Virtus.pro. Holding on for just a little bit longer. They hit 60%, but RAD, they have Feast from the Abyss, they have Galactic Legend, 59% of Raging Royal Flush, which falls short of Saipe 73, meaning Virtus.pro have one of the big engage tools, and you've still got to worry about Nevix on those flanks.
Yeah, here comes that Galactic Legend, this time from Virtus.pro, though, just stopping RAD from being able to take space, forcing them to have to basically take cover behind Ducky's Iron Curtain. That means that we're in almost last fight territory now, and RAD have not been able to take their space. They didn't lose anyone, though. The kite was good, so now we get both the Starlord and the Gambit ultimate. They should be able to sweep this fight. Virtus.pro have very little to be able to stand in the way, but if you're Virtus.pro, you're really, really happy with that trade-off. Yes, you lose the point control, but RAD had to burn both the Gambit and the Solid Ultimate, and you're at 94%. All you have to do for VP is come through with Gambit and Heartbreaker, because Nevix has swapped to the Rogue. He's done with the Strange. You've got the team up, Hearts as one, and this could be the thing that allows Virtus.pro to finally get past that checkpoint.
Here comes the Raging Royal Flush, Feast from the Abyss to try and capitalize, to try and take them down early, chasing them all the way. In the meantime, Vertigo comes into the Kumiho Unleashed to keep the team topped up, but is going to be ticked out of it so quickly. That's all the healing output they could have. Devil's been unleashed onto the backline, though. Takes out Fi. Smash Nest Fall starts to the Butterfly to try and burst on through with all of the healing output removed from RAD. Ducky's dropped low, holds on for as long as he can, but Virtus.pro's damage output is overwhelming here. They're pushing on through RAD, who are desperately throwing bodies at the point to buy time. Smash is going to portal back in to give them any opportunity they can to delay this as long as possible, but Virtus.pro, they barely lost anyone in that fight. Portal comes in for the reinforce. They don't even use it as a protective portal here. It's just straight onto the point to try and buy as much time as possible. Meteor M for the backline takes out nothing, blocked by Virtus.pro, but Virtus.pro are retreating off the point here. It flips for RAD, but ultimate-wise, they're charging up 53% for Saipe, but they've got to make sure they use it at the right time because MASH is already at the ready.
Yeah, they weren't able to pick MASH. They had to make do with just zoning the Gambit out of the fight and trying to win it before Royal Flush could come on through. But RAD have the ult now, and they're running at Virtus.pro. They know that Virtus.pro have no defenses. But yet again, VP, same approach, right? Lose to the Gambit ult fast, and now try to come back in again with greater ultimate economy in this next one. Nevix is swapping to the Strange. RAD's going to try and actually cancel it out. If Vertigo can get this charm onto that Strange portal to stop it, then VP might be in a really bad position to actually get a touch. Fi's taken down. Spark is out of the way. Virtus.pro don't get the Strange portal in time, and RAD knock them out of Preseason.
RAD take the win. Virtus.pro will have to try again in stage 1 as they dove the portal. VP knew exactly what to do. Lose early, portal back in, utilize your Raging Royal Flush that was at 70%. RAD, they know exactly that's what they need to do because they just did it. They run at them, find 2 isolated members, force them off the teleport before they can reinforce, and RAD move on. I'm pretty sure at this point everyone's predictions are in tatters here.
Oh, RAD are going to be so happy. That's like the deviated path from the previous Chopped versus Virtus.pro matchup. What a play coming through from them. We talked about, you know, like the skill gap, just like shortening between all of the teams in EMEA, and you truly do feel it. Like RAD's been able to catch up. The amount of improvements that they had as well in comparison to their match versus Shikigami earlier in the week, you can tell that now they're like putting in that extra little bit of time, like really approaching the ban draft in a different manner, making sure that they're actually like doing all of these researches into the team specifically so that they can feel as confident and comfortable as possible heading into these matches. What a turnaround for this team.
So impressive. This is RAD learning. We talked about it. They adjusted. They were trying to target as best as they could onto anyone. They were trying to target onto the strategist. Didn't work. They tried to target Crazy Kitty. Didn't work. Virtus.pro, they tried one last attempt to target against Lumiago, but the end of that name is GOAT, and he holds on with the Venom to just buy them the little bit more time they need.
What just happened? We just saw Virtus Pro get eliminated and reverse swept, I think, for the first time.
By a team
in,
called
like,
RAD. Again.
It happened again.
It's a multiversal team with different players on this roster, but RAD as an organization is just sitting back thinking we were made for this. The worst part for RAD, if you even can find a negative side, is that they do have to play a little bit later on. But a team that got humbled a couple of days ago by Shikigami in the upper bracket are not going to be feeling pretty humble right now. They just eliminated the world champions out of preseason and did it pretty much by matching them. 2-2-2, Dive, Gambit. It just seemed, Moxie, that like RAD were able to actually go up against Virtus Pro with pretty even drafts, even with Virtus Pro trying to go for something crazy by targeting Lugia at the end.
I mean, something I actually want to point out as well is that, like, in the draft, RAD saved both the Gambit and the Loki, but we saw, for the most part,
Loki, yeah.
Vertigo actually on the White Fox, and I think, like, this was a really good adjustment. They knew when Virtus Pro took us to Celestial Husk, getting both the Captain America, the Venom, the Jeff, it was going to be Dive. Daredevil as well having to be a later ban coming on through from RAD, so that Crazy Kitty can just, like, read out when Virtus Pro are wanting to hit, where they're wanting to hit from, and that means that you pass that information to Vertigo. You're sitting on such a low cooldown on Spectral Surge, that CC charm coming on through against the Venom. Multiple times we saw Nevix try to create the space at the start of those fights, not wanting to go for an elimination, literally just like soft diving, trying to disrupt, trying to force RAD to have to turn and deal with the Venom so that VP's rest of the team gets more space done, but he just doesn't get the opportunity to get out because of that White Fox play. And I really do feel like when we move into the later stages of this meta, White Fox is going to be looked at much more closely if you want to play Dive as a, well, do we actually want to let this through? Because even without the Luna, it's still proving to be problematic.
Alongside a Daredevil too, I think Tetcher, when you could just play with that information, and some really good moments, I think, for Crazy Kitty to switch over to the Daredevil alongside the White Fox, both on Midtown second when they were like switching it around middle of the map, but also like on these couple of points that they played here. I think if there's like a part of the map that we've just saw from Celestial Husk to highlight, it's that third point, naturally, where it came to a conclusion, and the portal play for RAD just struggling, eking to get people onto the objective to hold it in their favor when you've got Virtus Pro looming at like 99% or near enough in the 90s. The fact that RAD were able to hold on and push that to 100 is going to feel great, considering that's the part of the game that they struggled with right at the start of the day on Hell's Heaven, right?
And not just then, but against Shikigami as well. What were the things that we talked about where they sometimes had difficulties with? It was knowing when to portal and getting effective portals that were either in time or in the right place. That one was perfect. It was just get bodies on the point. Don't hesitate. Don't worry about who's portaling, where they portaling. Just get them to the point. And once they did that, it was all about, again, something that RAD had a little bit of difficulty with against Shikigami, crisis management. Working out what's Virtus Pro's win condition? Their portal time. Well, let's just not let them do that. Run at their face, run at their spawn, don't let them touch. And it worked out perfectly. This is RAD learning from their mistakes, and we love to see it.
Yeah, I'll show you my notes that I had for just in case Virtus Pro got eliminated today. That's pretty much what I had written down. Absolutely sod all. But like in this case, as we're looking at this, Moxie, Virtus Pro being eliminated, immediately people are going to be like, they're washed, they need to drop this play, they need to do that, they need to do this. Like, this doesn't feel too dissimilar to like stage one. Less stakes because we're not going towards an international event from preseason at the very least. What would you say for like Virtus Pro for like going into stage one? It is just narrow of a month away. They've got some time, but is it them being behind the meta, or is it just the rest of the region of the EMEA catching up in terms of how they can contribute?
I think it's sort of like the meta getting to a counter dive position at the worst possible time for Virtus Pro, right? Even though they're saying like, okay, well, we're not just a dive team. Dive is still like their bread, their butter, their comfort as well. If you're going to Celestial Husk, it's going to be dive elements coming on through. I think if you were playing in a meta where White Fox like wasn't as buffed, maybe wasn't even released, then Virtus Pro would have had an easier time being able to pull off those dive compositions. But like we saw RAD just perfectly be able to deal with the dive, because VP, they try to play like so many different aspects of it. They try to play like, okay, one person goes and dives this spot, someone else goes and dives that spot at the same time, because they saw from Hell's Heaven how coordinated RAD actually were in anticipating one element of dive in one set position and all 6 of their players ready to peel it. So Virtus.pro tried to like deviate away from that strategy by literally pulling RAD in as many different directions as they possibly could, with as well the Rocket BRB, so that if you lost one of those fights, you're still bringing that player back and you can take that instant player advantage of just pushing RAD out. Losing those first fights on a dive composition up against a Gambit Starlord composition is always going to be the absolute worst, because it doesn't mean that you just lose one fight, it means you lose the second one that comes afterwards too.
We'll definitely have a lot more to talk about, and we'll be seeing the action from RAD a little bit later. But before we get into the second best of 5, let's talk to one of the duelists on the side of RAD Gaming, Smashnez. First of all, congratulations. You've had a turbulent time, I think, in preseason so far, with like losing to Shikigami, getting your revenge. Ducky said that you guys got humbled. I'm pretty sure you're not feeling humble right now. You're probably over the moon, right?
Yeah, we did get very humbled on the Shikigami match. We did not expect to lose as hard as we did, but we took some time. We put in the work, and yeah, it shows.
Can you talk us a little bit through like the first stages of the series? Because obviously things changed when you started going for the instant save on the Gambit as opposed to the Loki, but you're not just saving the Loki for, you know, laughs. What was the exact plan? What was the reasoning behind going for the Loki first?
We wanted to play a lot of like front to back. We have one of the best Lokis on the server on our team, Ash. So we thought we were playing to our strengths with that. And we were also hoping that they didn't expect it, and it almost worked, but we didn't close it out. So yeah.
So looking ahead for the rest of the series, like Moxie said, you started protecting the Gambit as time went on. What was eventually the trigger for that? You talked about how you were trying to prioritize the Loki, but you started prioritizing Gambit as well as stuff like the eventually getting Lugia onto the Rogue, for example. Was it just it wasn't working as well as you expected in the earlier rounds, or was it just, okay, let's just try this strategy because it works better on the map?
So the first 2 maps, like I said, we tried to do like kind of curveballs, hoping they wouldn't expect it. And it didn't really work. So third map we were like, let's just go to our comfort. We like Gambit comps, and we do have the best Rogue on the server. There's nobody in EU better than Lugia on Rogue. And it went a lot better, as you can see.
For sure. I think Mash had pretty much MVP performances across all 2 map wins. Outside of Crazy Kitty having some good stuff too on the Deadpool Vanguard. Look, real quick, that final map, what was Lugia's reaction when he saw the likes of like The Thing, Deadpool Vanguard, Rogue all be banned out in a row? Is he thinking like, oh man, like what are they saying screw me for? Or are you thinking it's so open for us to punish the backline because you were going for the strategists a lot right in the draft?
To be honest, when we saw the Thing ban, we started laughing, especially Lugia. It was like, why are they target banning me? But yeah, we were also really happy because it did leave all our characters open, and we thought, hey, this is a good time to dive.
What was it like in those last moments? Sorry, real quick, the portal play right at the end where like you realized that you'd got like that sort of fight win. You knew that they were going to go for like an overtime portal play. You just ran at them, right? I imagine comms were a little bit chaotic trying to stop Virtus.pro from getting on there.
I would be lying if I said I was a little bit nervous. I was like kind of shaking after I TP'd and we won the fight. And everyone just screamed, "They're TPing! Cancel it! Cancel!"
So talk to us a little bit now, because obviously like Virtus.pro being out, that means that predictions fully up in the air, I think, for a lot of people. You've been able to go up against likes of Shikigami already. Where would you now place the power dynamics for EMEA? Like, who do you think are the top 3 teams?
I think at the top right now, I think it's Na'Vi. I think they showed a really good performance yesterday, and they're really good at the meta. They swap very fast when they need to. And then it's either also Heretics on second, and the other one is obviously third place, and then Shiki on fourth. We're hoping to beat them later today. Gonna show that we're better than we showed last time.
Yeah, they'll be playing just after this, and then you've got a bit more of a break as Heretics and Na'Vi going to be fighting in the upper bracket. Final question about this, right? Because we did see Na'Vi beat Virtus.pro yesterday. It didn't feel like you sort of took what Na'Vi did and tried to use it yourselves. It did feel like you sort of beat them in a different way, a style that suited you, right? Was there anything from that loss against Na'Vi yesterday that you wanted to take into this series against Virtus.pro?
We tried to take in, like, they played a lot of Wolverine. We tried to take that in, but they ended up banning it after first map, I think. And other than that, it was just, you gotta be fast with the adaptations in this meta. There's so many things you have to play. And there's like one character change can change the entire dynamic of the game.
Well, I won't even ask like who you think like the opponent is. I guess you want to get your revenge on Shikigami, but they have Fire Strays to play after this. And I want to send you on a break as soon as possible because you are playing later today. So again, congratulations, Smash. There's a really fun series to be watching, and we'll see you a little later on today.
See you.
Smash Dares. I mean, it couldn't happen to a better team when it comes to like vindication, right? Because it's the fact that we went into that final map and we were like, it's like Virtus.pro versus FaZe, it's like Virtus.pro versus Chopped. You've got players that were on both of those teams that lost in those final maps, finally getting a bit of revenge. And showing that EMEA isn't just a one-trick pony with the Bears, that there are 5, maybe even 6 teams Moxie that can compete at the top.
I mean, that's what we said for the series, right? We get to see the comparison of RAD versus VP in the group stages. Now RAD winning against VP in the playoffs. Like, the skill gap is shortening in EMEA and at a very drastic pace.
I'll come back to you after the break, Texture, because we have got another best of 5 to go through, which I feel just at this rate is going to go to all 5 maps. Back Chief is going to be basically 24 hours of watching EMEA action, I think, at this rate.